motion to approve the minutes for the February 2nd board meeting?
So moved.
Okay. Need a second?
Second.
You're almost simultaneous. I saw Lauren. Okay, do we have any discussion, any comments, any corrections? Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Any abstentions?
Oh, I wasn't there.
You weren't there. Okay, so for the record, Kelly said there's anyone else who wasn't there who wants to abstain? Okay, so we have one abstention. Okay. The minutes are approved. Okay, moving on to the chapter report, which is Linda.
Okay, on page 33, Caroline has a list here of chapters that are seeking to be chartered. I also have a note from her saying that Wyoming Pro has officially submitted the necessary paperwork to be added to the list. So if you're on page 33 and you wish to allow these chapters to be chartered, please say.
Okay, so you want to add, and the other one was what? I'm sorry.
Wyoming Pro.
Wyoming Pro. Can we make a note of that? Do we have a motion to approve adding these chapters, including Wyoming Pro? Okay. All right. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, Tess.
And I have one more thing.
Okay.
I brought everybody that needs them. I brought some membership brochures and code of ethics are in the box here by the chairs. So if you need them, grab some and go out.
Excellent. So speaking of chapters, you can all bring those to your chapters. Okay, do we have any discussion? Okay, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Any nays, abstentions? Okay, all of these new chapters are approved, and that is a very good list of new chapters. Now we have chapter reports. We have a couple people calling in. Oh, and by the way, Jennifer, after Yvette, it'll be Bob. Oh, have we got Yvette on the phone?
I do.
Okay, so we have some of these reports. Hopefully, you read them all. A few of them we have board members or others who will be calling in. Beginning with Yvette, who's the vice chair of diversity. Yvette, can you hear us? Yvette, can we hear you?
Yes. Okay.
So yeah, would you like to give us? So we're here. We can hear you. There. Would you like to update us on the diversity committee report?
Sure. First of all, good morning, good afternoon to you all. Sorry I couldn't be there with you guys. So the diversity report, Rebecca and I, along with the other members of the diversity committee, our goal was to revamp the application, make it simple for the applicants. We also wanted to make sure the language was set accordingly. We also wanted to make sure that it was going to be promoted properly and efficiently so that this gets known well, just but general folks who are interested, so that as our goal is to make sure that the Society of Professional Journalists gets to be known as an organization that gives back and is there for journalists, not just for diversity related reasons, but just in general, to get an education on what they may need to advance their careers. So we're on track. We're ready to the fellowship. Everything's going to be on deadline. We're not giving an extension. We're not then saying or cutting it off midway. Everything's going to be set up to track so that we also follow our rules, because then we're going to have to look over those applications and go through the test to be finished. So going with selecting key people. And just we're making sure that this goes national, and our goal is to make sure, like I mentioned before, that SPJ is known. Majority of our fellowship gets promoted, and we have been on social media, on Twitter, LinkedIn, all of our committee members, along with people that we're letting know. So make sure you promote it so that people that don't know how this can apply and get the opportunity, and also get to know that the convention is coming up, so they have the opportunity to attend. If, let's say, they don't want the fellowship, but they hear about it through the fellowship, that they can attend, and it gives us more traction to that.
That was bad.
Any questions?
Yeah, does anyone have any questions for Yvette?
It's on top of it.
Diversity. Fellowship. Keep up the good work. We're doing a lot of good work there. In the event, we're sorry to hear you couldn't join us. As I think most of you know by now, she's dealing with post-fire. And so she was just not able to be here in person. She had planned to come back. But good luck with everything else, and thanks for your work on the diversity committee.
Of course, and like I mentioned before, I'm here for you guys. Whatever else anyone may need to help out with other committees, my hand is extended. I mean, I know I'm going through the circumstance, and I was trying to go, I was trying to just put some normalcy back in my life, which will happen, one day at a time, but I'm here for you guys as well.
Thank you. Okay. And we'll be in touch with that. Okay. Thanks.
Good luck.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Okay, Jennifer, the next one we'll need to call Bob Becker, but maybe while we're getting through to him, talk about bylaws. Tess, would you like to talk about the revival of the Generation J?
So we have a committee of 7. We're from all parts of the country. All got one person doing a master's program. We've got people who just graduated from master's programs, people still in college, people done with college, in jobs, and a freelancer. So we kind of have a lot of different experience all happening at once. And so we're kind of still toying with a lot of project ideas, but the 2 things that seem really popular with everyone right now are reviving the old mentorship program that was previously run by Gen J. I don't know when, but a while ago. And the other project that everyone is kind of gravitating towards is some kind of general guide for how to run a student chapter effectively. Most of us had been a chapter president at some point in time, and we were kind of commiserating, and we realized we had same problems. And I'm really lucky because my advisor was Becky Talent. So we had a really good resource for asking questions to, but not every chapter has an advisor that used to be on the board and is still in a committee, very involved. So that resource could be really important, even just coming down to like planning events, some ideas for that kind of stuff, the different requirements, tips for interacting with the local pro chapters, that kind of thing. So tell me your thoughts about those.
So on the mentorship program, if it's helpful to one of the founding members of Gen J, Sonia Quick, formerly Sonia Smith, as a friend, and I can connect the 2.
That would be great, yeah.
Happy to do that.
Yes, I'm the advisor side, and Becky is a working advisor. There are a number of us who have done this for a long time, who I think would be a good resource to be sort of as a ad hoc. Ad hoc, because again, we've seen so many students come and go, and so many issues have come up, and I think as you guys are still figuring it out, we've had to figure it out multiple times along the way. And I would be willing to certainly help in that capacity. And I bet you anything we find about half a dozen other advisors would be willing to do that.
Yeah, I think just kind of like thinking about it in my head, at some point we would want to find more students, a lot of the faculty that are on the board. So yeah.
But tap into some of the active, again, membership can tell you who the active advisors are, who are constantly contributing and calling, and they're the ones who have such an abundance of experience that would be well worth tapping into.
Yeah.
Yes, I was an advisor for 8 years, so yeah.
Awesome. Excellent.
Well, yes.
On the mentorship side, there used to be a pretty popular mentorship program from a group now disbanded called Unity Journalists. This was a group that was made up of the Ethnic Minority Journalists Association. When that mentor program ended, everybody was it was a great program, everybody missed it. So number one, a mentorship program is a great idea. I think people really will get behind it. But if you are, looking to get diversity into that as well, I'm sure there are people still who were a part of Unity Mentor, and Devin can probably help you because we were both mentors on that program, but.
I know, I was the oldest scholar.
Oh, were you the mentee? Okay.
I had a weird mid-career career change.
Okay.
Midlife career change.
But it was really good, and the logistics they built in worked. So anyway.
So that's the big thing is the logistics.
Yeah.
Because I know
Yeah.
last time it ran through you somehow, and it sounded like a mess. So. The previous iteration of the Gen J mentorship program.
Oh, we still have a mentorship page on Facebook that gets requests for people who, I can't even tell if they're journalists, like, it is a mess. So we need to figure out, and we would have to go in and see if they were a member, because it was for members only.
Yeah.
So we had to turn away a lot of people. It's a mess.
Yeah.
The
So.
program was not without cost, and I don't know, obviously we need to see if there's possible funding for this, but the previous thing I'm talking about involved trips of the mentees coming to see their mentors and vice versa. So you may not want to do that, but there could be expenses, but a better program is going to connect those people, so.
Yeah, and one thing Lynn mentioned when we talked about this is, she said, well, there were a lot of people who didn't like being emailed all the time, but that was like long ago enough that being emailed all the time was like not normal. So I think even just from the perspective of like communication has changed and it's a little bit more acceptable to email people a bunch. Even that is helpful.
Yeah.
When it comes to thinking what we're gonna be doing. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, except I got cheated because my mentor was in the same city. I just popped down to the Republic to pick him up for lunch.
Okay, are there any other questions on that? We have a little audio issue over here. So, yes.
Well, I'll just pile on. I really love the idea of restarting mentoring. One of the reasons I think people don't go forward in SPJ is because nobody asks them to do anything specific. And if you have something specific to do, you're more engaged, more likely to stay and keep paying and so forth. So making those pairs with our members and younger members would be really cool.
Yeah, and I think the more I think about it, the handbook is something that we can kind of just plug away at versus the mentorship could be the main course that we're working on. So I think those both would fit really well together.
Give me a call, send me an email next week so we can make sure there are some synergies in our mentorship scripts
Yes.
programs with college students.
Yes.
It was the Ford Foundation, by the way.
He was a goat roast.
Okay. Well, there are no further questions. I want to make sure that Bob is still here on the line to speak. Are you here? Okay, good. So were there any questions about this? Okay, it sounds like you have a lot of resources there. Okay, the next committee report is from Bob about bylaws, which I hope you've all read. Bob, sorry to have to do it this way. We're back to using, we thought we could use Zoom, but it didn't work well yesterday, so we're on the phone now. Can you, hopefully you can hear all of us. And we can
Well, I can hear you.
Good.
I think I probably can. If I need repeating questions, then I'll ask.
Okay. So do you want to start by presenting these amendments?
You all will recall that last convention, we started the process of terminating the Quill endowment and turning the money over to the foundation to administer the same way it administers all other restricted funds. And that, under the bylaws, required two successive votes and two successive conventions to do that. We did one first one last time. This time we're going to ask the delegates again to terminate the trust. And if they, assuming that they vote to do that, then we will ask them to move Article 3 of the bylaws, which is the article that deals entirely with Quill endowment. Just get that. That's the simple one. The second simple one is last convention. And what it changed its name to the Society for Prevention of Journalism or Foundation. And they want to references SPX to the bylaws of the Society. or closed session or personnel contracts or whatever you can at those meetings, open parts should be streamed live so that anyone can watch. You or just this week can watch that in person. And also that the meeting packet will be posted at least 72 hours before the meeting so people can get up to speed. So those are the amendments we proposed for SPJ. In recognition of the fact that SPJ board is now going to be only 9 members, and currently there are 7 SPJ board members appointed to sit on the foundation board. That would cause problems. So we proposed an amendment to the foundation bylaws to allow, which now say that only SPJ board members can be appointed to fill those 1-year terms. We would now say that any SPJ member could be appointed. Now, there was at least one proposal to broaden that even further, and so I guess I should defer at this point to Bergman to tell us what the board actually did.
That's good for our informational notice, and I don't know if everyone in the room can hear because it's a large room and you're on the phone. So the thing we're talking about now actually needs to be approved by the foundation.
Yeah, maybe it's approved by the foundation board, then if they did that, they would send it to you within 30 days.
And we've talked about it, and it certainly makes sense to broaden that. Erwin is here, and he can describe that. However, we do need to take a vote, not on that, but on the provisions that we need to approve on the SPJ board in order to be able to send it to the delegates. Is that right? Erwin, did you want to speak for a minute about that?
Yeah, because Bob's not aware of this, but on that one provision regarding your future appointments to the foundation board, we were unable to act yesterday because our bylaws require a 2/3 majority of all members of the board. We simply did not have that present yesterday, so. So we've deferred action on that provision until September, which really doesn't have any practical effect because the next time that would actually be operative will be when the new board seats in the fall. So we're able to do that for you.
And you can do that, you don't need a delegate vote. Okay, that's good to know. I remember that we deferred until September, but it can take effect this year. Okay, so for this board, the provisions that Bob described, I think we first just need a motion to put it on the table and then we can discuss what we just said. Do we have a motion to approve the bylaws amendments, not affecting the foundation, but those that he described? Okay, Lauren, we have a second. Okay, Patty. So this motion is on the table to approve those. Send to the delegates. Do we have any discussion, or importantly, since we have Bob on the phone, any questions for him? Any further explanation? Yes, Lauren.
Just a quick question, Bob. I really strongly support the idea of streaming, or at least the availability of all of these meetings, access to everyone, members and non-members alike. But I know that we've had some technological issues, and so clearly we want HQ to work on that so that it can be provided. So I guess what I'm asking is, in the short term, if it ends up being an audio stream and we eventually get to the video stream, the key is just you want the transparency as working toward that.
Yeah, I think it could be audio, but I think they worked out. Zoom allows for having the public in and closing them out when needed. So
yeah, I think we had some technical difficulties when we tried it.
There was at least one meeting in which that worked.
Okay.
But yes, the answer to your question is it could be an audio stream.
Okay.
That would be helpful given our technical challenges. Patty has a question.
Hi, Bob. I'm wondering if you could explain why you think it's a good idea to open foundation board membership to any member as opposed to SPJ board members?
Well, Patty, right now, as I said, 7 of your members are appointed to these 1-year terms. Your board is only going to be 9 going forward from September. That would make 7 of the 9 members possibly or more, because you can actually have more members than appoint committee chairs or appoint any member who has an interest or ability, perhaps, don't care, is a member of the society, not a member of the board. If you weren't already a member of the foundation board, you might want to put in somebody like you. So it just gives you the opportunity to seat other people who have an interest in being on the foundation board, may be able to help raise money and not be restricted to just the members of the board.
Got it. Okay, thanks.
And we have a question from Tess.
Not so much a question, but that is a wonderful idea, because if we're going to diversify both boards, it's not going to be possible if this board is almost the same as that board.
Yeah.
Good point.
Yeah, and how it works, I know that you're relatively new on the board. The majority of the foundation board have to be external directors, but the SPJ president can appoint up to basically half minus one. I think we only have 5 this year. It's fairly flexible what we can appoint, but even this year, I would have liked to have appointed some other people for reasons of diversity or younger members, but we're limited to the board now. So I fully support this, Bob and I, telling you that. So, any other questions? Okay, we have a motion on the table. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any nays? Any abstentions? Okay, the motion is approved. Thank you.
Okay,
Wow, for coming.
just one word.
Yes.
This has to go be circulated.
Oh, yes.
60 days before the opening business meeting. I think historically, over the past several years, that's been done by putting them up on the website and sending a link in leads so that everybody can get to them. You don't have to send PDF to everybody, but you have to just make it possible for everybody to get to them.
Okay.
60 days.
And Bob, we'll count on you to work with HQ and remind, send them the text and just remind them so we do make that deadline.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye. Okay, we're almost there. By the way, I don't know if Becky, did you want to give a brief report on LDS? I was going to say we've covered most of the people in the room who
I'll keep it really short. LDF has handled about 23 cases the first half of this term. It's pretty typical to what we usually do, and they are all about access. That's the big thing. We have one case that literally quoted our code of ethics, which is always nice to hear. And a lot of the times we're joining an amicus brief that is perhaps written by another organization, but that a lot of organizations believe in. But we're also awarding money. There's one in particular I wanted to point out, $5,000, hold on, that we awarded. Second, get to it because that was just a typical classic FOIA case. It's to Joshua Phillips in his attempt to get records about President Trump's DHS appointees shutting down the domestic terrorism mission, which analyzes hate groups and provides intelligence to fusion centers and federal, state, and local police agencies. This is really something there are fusion centers around the country that manage the terrorism risk everywhere. And so it's a classic example of a piece of FOIA that would not be just helpful on a national basis, but locally to reporters. And, I just want you to know just one particular case to point out to you of how good this money does. It really accomplishes a lot of good. So if anyone ever has questions, glad to answer.
Yes. Patty.
I want to ask a couple questions of staff. I know last year we were not able to do the LDF auction because it just fell off the radar with so much change in the office. So can we hear an update on that? And I'd also like to know how critical those dollars are to all the dollars we have, because I really don't understand the funding of our LDF initiative.
Right. Well, we had a big corpus, and we gave half of it to the fund that Dave cleared, the other fund that's going to be more of an advocacy, forward-thinking, rather than reacting like LDF does. So it would be nice to raise some more money, and I know Larry had some thoughts.
So yeah, we definitely are having the auction. We have a pretty net this one so far. And one thing that further to say that we're looking at maybe a team is released in pictures and prose. we've actually talked about doing like, each region provides a basket for like the region, or functions like that. We also want to incorporate the local chapter in organizing it. So I've actually reached out to one person just recently about that to be a chair. She actually appointed, she has a time to do it right now. And we'll continue to do that so that we can have them be incorporated as well. That's going to be annual, actually, really for the local chapter to be engaged in the planning of the whole thing. So, yeah, it is definitely happening. It'll be successful, and we want to do some high dollar things and some lower dollar things as well. Have good diversity of stuff.
But then beyond that, hopefully, there'll be some income from the shirts, which I think we should totally have a merchandise table. By the way, for the merchandise table, there's some chapters, like Cincinnati right now has a really cool t-shirt out too. We should say to chapters, hey, if you have a fundraising effort with merchandise, why don't you display here, and then maybe we just like take 10% or something, you know what I'm saying? And then have one central location.
We did that with EIJ with the shirts last year.
But that's just one region. So if everybody who is in the role of a regional director, or regional coordinator could contact whoever in your region is selling anything, and who at headquarters can they coordinate with.
That could be so much fun to see what different people have.
Could they be in touch with you if they have stuff that they want to sell?
Yep.
And then to my other question, in terms of the auctions, contribution to the LDF account overall, is that pretty significant or not? No.
It's not that.
It's just a nice awareness.
Yes, yeah, more than anything. I would love to add the idea Lauren brought back up though. That would be a very cool addition to more LDF dollars. I mean, and especially since we are in Texas, and we can have a sheriff do, lassoing of.
I like that idea.
The last thing that I'll mention, I'm always so impressed when I see this list of our advocacy efforts under LDF. And so it's 23 right now. By the time the convention will be 50.
40 something, probably.
Can we have a list of that available at the auction site? Where are your dollars going? Here you go. This is what we do. And just continue to push out the message that this is a really key service that we play in the world.
Sure.
And these aren't necessarily, and probably aren't even primarily SPJ members we're helping.
No,
right?
no, they're usually not SPJ members.
So who is SPJ? This is
the outreach that we're doing for the, this is what, when we talk about, we're here to help the journalism community, not our members necessarily. That's what these cases are. And it would be very easy to take my final report, which has, I usually add these to the new ones and just reprint it.
I think that's one thing. I had a member email me about this recently. It was a great idea. He said, oh, yeah, it's available on the website, but you have to be looking for it.
Yeah.
So if it was just something like every month or whatever we put on social media or something, that you're like, hey, just this month we've done this, and this. And I will say that, I mean, when it comes to fundraising, LDF is not a hard sell, because it's SPJ in action. And, on my end, what I need to do is take that same action and put it into the unrestricted part too, because we are also in action here too. We just haven't done a good enough job selling ourselves. But the LDF is definitely the sexy part of SPJ.
And letting folks know that we're here to help, right? You have a legal challenge, we're here to help. This is how you get help.
One more, and we do have one more committee, Sharon, Michael.
What is the total of the LDF now, and how does that stand historically speaking?
How much do we have right now in the
I
account?
know you get half of
We have about, is it about 100? What, do you have the exact amount? Oh, there you go, Jake.
Does that money make interest separately for like foundation money does? Or no?
It's held separately, but it's held within SPJ,
But it
not
accrues
the
interest or-
foundation. It's not held within the foundation.
I'm still
74,000.
That's what we're trying to do. Well, we've made a bunch of boards late, so we're down to 74. So I want to replenish that. Yes, go to jail.
Yeah, I just, you said that, some people are in the system, not SPJ members. I'm just wondering, people just send them an application, just, not overtly try to push them, but just, can I get it in the mail and they can do it?
Right.
Fill it out or not.
We thought about that, and we have to be kind of careful, because we don't want to send the message that in order to get the money, you have to be kind of a member. So we are trying to figure out a way to put some distance, kind of, or some sort of subtle messaging.
Yeah, it can't be a hard sell, maybe at the end of the year.
We also, I mean, one way to do it, maybe would be to ask them to maybe write something up when their case is done about how this helped them, and then get them to think more directly how SPJ helped them. And even if they don't join, it's still something we can use from them to promote to others in a more personal way. Obviously, we have the reports and the way to quantify it, but this is a more personal way that, you know, if somebody couldn't get access to this or wouldn't be able to defend themselves in this case.
Well, what I wish we could afford to do is to bring a couple of people in, like, especially right before an auction or something, like bring them into convention to stand up and say, this is what I'm fighting for, because I think that could be so inspirational.
Here's a thought, and again, I'm all for printed and putting it online, but it's the photos and visual video. A video about LVF and the people, and I realize it's time and effort, but there are enough of us now who have broadcast background and some of those skills, that that's what's gonna really help with raising that image of it. And I think certainly at EIJ, we'd have enough time.
Yeah, it's just a matter of getting those people, since they're not really our members and are probably not going to our convention. Maybe it would take like, if we had a session where we featured 3 of them, then we'd have them there. I know it's kind of late in the game, but then we could do a video also with, you know, this money made a difference.
Right, we can use, and it's as close as their own iPhone, they can do the video and send it to us, and then it's have some fun editing it.
Yeah,
that's true. That would be awesome.
Yeah, I was gonna say, this ties in with the testimonials that we'd like to do for the 110th anyway.
Yeah.
So get some of those.
Yeah, we would duplicate, but you know, they should be sharing with that, but I think this lives in its own unique location.
Oh, yeah.
Now we have one more committee chair on the phone, so we're ready to move on. This is the brand new membership committee chair. Colin, can you hear us? I turned out this, I had to go to my phone because we lost my ears. Can you hear it? You want to try again?
Yeah, I can hear you fine now. Before it was a little,
Okay. Yeah, we switched phones, that's okay. This for everyone, this is our really brand new membership chair. He's taking over mid-year and trying to rebuild the committee, and Kelly is here, by the way, your newest member. Do you want to, we have a report in the packet, do you want to give a summary and then maybe take some feedback from the board? And by the way, you're still in the car, right? He's on the road, so he can't take notes, but we can hear him.
Yeah, hi, everybody. My name's Colin. I'm on the board of the Deadline Club, which is a personal chapter in New York. And I've been on the membership committee for about 5 years or so, mostly under Robin's leadership. And I wanted to carry on a lot of what Robin had been working on, particularly a lot of the sort of work that she was doing with MAT members. And you'll see in my report, there are some bullets there involving the updating of invoices and some letters for onboarding. And I don't know what was actually implemented. I know that a lot of it was prepared, and the previous office staff worked closely with her on doing those things, but I don't know if they were implemented, so I'd like to hear your feedback in that regard. And then, just before I open it up to you guys to tell me everything that I would, like to know about membership, there are a few other items that for a few other ideas for campaigns that we can try on social media, which have been several in the past. SPJ for all, maybe an ask of asking your friends to join. Also, how SPJ has helped me try to get some members who have, and I know I identified a few of them, also just taking another look at our current partnership material and, working with the membership commission to make sure that we're capturing, presenting the right message and targeting the right people for membership. So I'm going to go over, but hopefully I can hear everybody's feedback. So please tell me and ask me questions.
Yeah, and for context, Colin, we've actually talked about some of these ideas already today because we've been talking about our long-term strategy and also celebrating our 110th anniversary. So we've been talking a little bit about outreach and defining our value for members. Do other board members want to chime in with other ideas and thoughts? Yes.
So we've talked a bit now about how to get the message out to show how SPJ is helping you. And you have a microphone. Hi, colleagues, about Walker. So we talked quite a bit about the idea of having testimonials, how SPJ has helped me, how either through LDF or through their own jobs and things like that. And earlier they were talking about this where all the messaging comes down to one point, and what point should that be for us? And maybe it is that. Maybe it is how SPJ has helped me. Because we're doing so many things. We're down to this. SPJ is relevant in my life because it has helped me or helped me in this way. Because we're kind of hearing this message over and over again. I think that maybe this is what you call it?
Center of gravity.
The center of gravity. Maybe that's the center of gravity. We see that we keep coming back to that. So it's something to think about.
Hi, this is Lauren. So I think that half of the equation. I think the other half is how we can make SPJ relevant to them and what we can do for them that we're not present in their lives. The advocacy that we do so much in LDF that we're also stuff when you say do our own and so I think it's probably that two that have exploratory developments, but what we have right now and what we can do.
Yes. Hi, this is Patty Newberry. Still with us. Hi. So thank you very much for stepping up and stepping forward with this. I have an idea that will artificially inflate our numbers, but
Public meetings.
But might have the net effect of actually sparking some imagination. And that's the idea of everybody in this room and everybody else we can find sponsoring one student member for 1 year. I would definitely put up $37.50 for one person. I offered this as an item at one of the regionals I just went to, and I know I'm going to get a bill. The idea is they have to pay it first, and I pay them back. And if we could get a bunch of pro members to commit to sponsoring one student for 1 year, but part of the gig is that they have to go crazy about it and talk about it and put it on social media, and then we ask them to maybe pass it forward. They have to sponsor a fellow student the next year or whatever. I mean, I just think it's worth trying something. And the idea, when I say artificially, what if we got a bump of 100 new members or 200 members from this? And then we go, wow, that worked. Isn't that cool? Everybody wants to be an SPJ. We're the cool kids all of a sudden. Right? It could have that effect, I'm thinking, And Billy O'Keefe's going to.
We were talking earlier about the mentor matchup and what a mess that is. Why don't you combine the two, where you're a mentor, the mentee is given that sponsor, is given that membership.
Billy O'Keefe is saying that maybe we could pair this with a mentoring idea that Tess Fox is working on in the Gen J community. If you sign out as a mentor, you also obligate yourself to paying $37.50 for one member for 1 year. Those things could nicely complement each other.
And one idea we had was that membership should actually coordinate more both with Gen J and with the diversity, since that's really also about inspiring membership and retaining members. Colin, can you still hear us? You there?
Yeah, I'm just waiting for my moment to comment.
Okay. You want to comment? I think everyone can hear you. Yeah.
I think the student pairing idea is wonderful. I think the mentorship program, having pro members, pro member mentors with either young professional mentees or student mentees is a great idea, and I think that can be cross-regional. I mean, it doesn't need to be, you don't need to have someone in region one, a pro member in region one, mentoring someone in region one. They can be anywhere else in the country, and it can be just email communication or what that is. They might have questions, they might be interested in what kind of work you've done, etc. So, I don't know. I think that we've talked about that for a while, though. I'm not sure. I mean, now you're saying that Gen J is working on something. I'm not sure where that is now, and that's sort of my challenge right now is to understand where we are with a lot of these things already. Because I don't want to have to do new work or duplicate efforts.
Right. I think actually the first step really is to rebuild the membership committee, because you now have, I think, people in regions 1, 11, and 12. So I really think that the next step this spring is, and hopefully, oh wait, we have to pass this around. Michael, see, you want to people sort of pass it down? I see a hand raised. Not an easy way to pass it. Okay.
Hey, Colin, it's Mike Savino. This is more a point, maybe an idea that the rest of the board can help out with, but actually just yesterday I helped Colin get in touch with, there's some new leadership at Connecticut Hearst. They're the biggest two newspapers in Connecticut. And certainly I hear from older members about times with newsrooms with paper memberships and really push for people to be in SPJ. Those days are probably gone, but I just know from my experience, the last newsroom I was in, the leadership really didn't see any value in SPJ, and so I had just gotten on the board and I had a hard time convincing other colleagues to join. Where I am now, there's much more buy-in and support, and so I've actually been able to convince a few of my colleagues to join. In my last paper since I've left, and there's been a change in leadership where they're supportive of SPJ, and a few of those writers have joined. So, helping Colin get in touch with some of those newsroom leaders at maybe at least the bigger outlets, so we can figure out how does SPJ sort of build relationships with them where they see a value in having their employees be members? What can they get from it that they're then telling their employees that they should support our organization? That could be one way to sort of get an infrastructure in these newsrooms.
Okay. There's no further questions.
For being a great champion.
And thanks for calling in the road. We're taking thanks for calling in for the road.
Yeah, sure. No, I think I don't have, I'm trying to connect closely with the headquarters staff so we can really map out a plan. Also, if everybody can please, in their region, ask people who are active in the organization if they don't have a job yet, to give them a job on the membership committee. We need people that want to hopefully build enough representation from all the regions, ideally, so we can get new ideas.
Okay.
And then work together on applying that. And I also want to hear from that first staff and what they need help with, so that our committee can work.
Well, they're at the other end of the table, but I will make sure. Thanks for calling in, Colin. Okay.
Okay.
Bye.
Thanks so much.
Alex?
Yes.
That's, that wasn't particularly him, but I think moving forward with our strategic plan issue, this might sound like a little thing, but I wonder if we could take a look at how successful our committees really are. I feel bad for our committees. They work really hard, usually in a vacuum meeting on the phone and in a small truly meeting room at EIJ where no one shows up. The most successful committees usually awards because it has a specialized mission, it has staff support. But I have seen Mark Scarf once try to run a committee on outreach to 100 people with zero budget, zero staff time. I've watched Gen J, Lynn Walsh, former president here, was head of that committee, and sort of left it with some frustration just because we can give it all the care and feeding twice a year. But I'm wondering if we talk about how SPJ is going to move forward, it might not be too small a thing to wonder
I
how
think
we do it.
that's something that we should actually discuss in this, this long-term strategic thinking. I think there's a wide variation. There are some committees that are incredibly effective. I think the First Amendment FOIA Committee had a great Sunshine Week. They were very active. Ethics works like crazy. They do the ethics hotline. They answer 100 calls a year. So there's some that are very effective. There are some that are not effective, and it also tends to ebb and flow, quite frankly, depending on the chairman. And we had a wonderful chairman under Robin. Membership used to be great. The last year, it's been kind of dormant, and we're trying to rebuild it. So that's, it depends a lot on the chairman. Lauren.
In the same vein, I also think that the task force should look at the communities. I talked to Venture actually about the idea of looking at those over lunch today. I think that's part
And
of
there again, there's a huge difference. My impression is freelance is really active, and Chen J had fallen, completely dormant when it went from a committee to a community.
So part of it is what is the role when we're deciding what our priorities are, who we're going to be, what is the role and function and how does it or doesn't fit that, as well as how active or not active it is. Because you could have some people who are really active, but what they're doing doesn't ultimately make the priority list. And vice versa, where you've got something that we should be much more active than it has been, and then you throw this resources there.
Yeah, and right now they're definitely not feeding into a central strategic plan. Okay, but that was the committee report, and we do have to move on. And next up is Matt to talk about the board policy review task force. This is very, very important. We had a little bit of a slow start because Matt had other projects, but it's one of the more up there with the long-term strategic planning. Because not only will it make it much easier to run if we catalog and clean up our policies and have them in a central place you can find on our website, but we've talked about fundraising all day. We can get the small grants down to get the really big money, to be really honest, to get those multi-million-dollar grants, they look at things like how good your board policy are and they can find it on the website. So this has long-term potential. So now.
Yeah, so just really quickly, I'll summarize kind of what I wrote on page 60 of the board package. I hope next month the group will start meeting. It's Andy, Lauren, Bill McCloskey, and Catherine Jones, who's the regional coordinator in Texas. And we've already started with assistance from headquarters and to Linda and to Allison, collecting dozens of existing policies. Some of the draft, some of the in place for a while. And so what we're going to do is we're going to collect them all, evaluate them, update them, and then importantly, put them on our website so we can all see and have access to them daily. And our timeline is to bring this to the board in September.
We're really just getting started. So this will be a large item in the last meeting. And the last item before the next break is the IJ. So
Well, I'll start, but there are Allison and other folks from staff that are involved in the IJ as well. We've been meeting all year so far, twice a week, often, out along calls led by Kate Switchenko from RTDNA. Very productive calls. We've had around 160 program proposals, as both workshops and breakout sessions, the shorter ones, the 1 hours. And we're down to our favorite 40. I shared those with you guys about 2 weeks ago. There's still some decisions to be made, of course, and a lot of tweaking of the actual language. So I've learned a lot through this process about how we collect and vet our proposals, and I think some changes might be in order, so I'll just lay out a couple of things. A lot of the proposals come in and they're very flabby. They're just general ideas without specific names or people who have been asked. You know, I'll give you an example. Somebody, a lovely proposal to bring in who's the journalist who wrote about My Lai? Sidney Hirsch. Sidney, is that the right name?
Yes.
Seymour Hirsch, right? And I was so excited. I thought, wow, somebody got Seymour Hirsch to yes already. This is great. And was flushed out, told you about his importance to journalism. And then I asked, and I was told, well, we had no idea whether Seymour Hersh actually had been invited. And so I wrote to Seymour Hersh and I asked him, and he said he would come. Ultimately, we're not going to go with that. But why would you put Seymour Hersh's name in your proposal if you hadn't asked Seymour Hersh whether he'd like to come to SP? You know, so it's a really good idea, but the work hadn't been done. So how can we inspire our members who go to the trouble of putting something in the portal to actually do the work that's necessary? It's a different, I know, and I know you have a lot of experience on this.
Yeah, it's a little different than how we ran it, because we actually did not ask people to admit, but I admit, with someone as famous as Seymour Hersh, probably not going to get them. But we had the opposite problem when I did it, which is they would ask, I mean, we get, biggest record in the world at NHJ, we had almost 200 proposals. They would actually go out and ask people to speak at NHJ before it was approved. That was, now not with a famous person, but that was also a problem. Because then we would sometimes hear from people who had been asked and the proposal was not approved. So there's a problem there too. Now I admit that with getting a famous person, yes, that we don't actually know. Right. One thing we could give maybe is better guidance.
Well, the thing is,
say if you know this person or if you think you could get them.
I think we do give a lot of guidance on that ask, right? That form asks people to put down names of who would produce it, who would moderate it, who would be the panelists, what's the description. All that's asked for, and not much is provided, I found. And many of the descriptions are not very specific. They're too general. They're not focused. Lots of them aren't focused. So I'm not sure I think we can do better. And because now, even though we have this 40 that we like, there's still a ton of work that has to be done to actually populate those programs, confirm that if no names were even put forward, but we like the idea, now somebody who is not me has to go out and find those people to populate those panels. That's a huge amount of work that still has to happen. So even though we have these early deadlines, we get a lot of proposals, they're just not very high quality. The work isn't there.
A good solution, Abby, is, it was on the ONA 14 planning committee in Chicago for their conference. Put up an example of what a good proposal looks like. We did 2 or 3 of those. And then a little tips thing too, and then we have a little email address you can write to somebody.
That's a really good idea. Yeah. This is what we need to see, right?
So pick like 2 or 3 of them you will really like this year that are specific. Right. We'll put them out there. I think it'll cut down the amount of that.
So I got a couple other things, Larry, and then I'll turn it back to you guys. I think I wrote you all that there's room in the lineup for 2 more that are SPJ only or SPJ produced. And so I've gotten some ideas from some of you, but if you have more, please send those along. Again, look at the list of the topics that have already been okayed, and if you see polls or you see something that's come up this weekend that you really think you need to turn our attention to, we can devote those to additional spots. And then lastly, I think I shared this as well, each of the 3 sponsoring groups will have a super session, and ours will be related to elections, the 2020 election. And we've started putting together a hit list of people we'd like to bring in. And so we're just beginning work on that.
The only other add is just along those lines that people have these ideas. We do have an ideas section, so if somebody's abroad, like, I think you guys should have a panel that does this. They can, submit that, and then once the committee flashes through, they're like, this is a good idea. And then we go to that person and say, hey, this is a great idea. How committed are you to doing this? Are you able to do that or not? So if we can train people to say, okay, please have an idea, put them here. If you're going to put over here, though, and I like what Mike says, do this in this form.
Okay, Larry, did you want to tell us, and for those of you who don't know, Larry is the staff contact on the assert. That is on the planning committee, the staff contact.
Well, in terms of any non-program information you want to share about EIJ, the site is up, the site is open, early registrations are July.
The letters have gone out to all of the panels that were approved. They went out last Wednesday, I think.
Right.
And also, we sent letters to those who did not get accepted. And Marina on staff, who was here this morning, she monitors those. We met with you last week to talk about the super session that we're producing, which is elections, on elections. And went down the list of potential people to invite. One invite has gone out already to Donna Brazil to see if she'd be interested in moderating. She is checking her schedule and says to give her a week and a half to get back to us. As far as NAHJ is concerned, their programming will center almost exclusively on training, and they will start joining our calls next month. What month is this, May? In May, they'll start joining, because they haven't really been kind of on the calls, but they'll start joining in May just to add their 2 cents about the super sessions. But they're really focused on training. And I think that
Except that their super session, they're going to use the super session on immigration as their topic where everybody will be.
In general, NHJ is kind of creating their own track. It's open to anybody, of course, but they like have their own track.
That's what's different, because 2 years ago, when the issue was there, we had 200 proposals to consider, but that's why they're on that track. Okay, go on.
So I have a scheduling question. I see that our board meeting is on Wednesday rather than Thursday. And I know that from a travel perspective and cost perspective and days away from work perspective, that there are some board members who have concerns with that. Is there a reason why it can't be Thursday morning?
There's no reason it can't. That was proposed because we came up with the idea of having the board meetings like all the other organizations, which is they have the board members meetings, RTDNA, ONA, everyone, before the conference starts, so that the board can participate more fully with the conference attendees. Because as you know, we have like 3 board meetings during our conference, so we spend most of our time not at the conference. It was only a suggestion. We haven't booked the room, the boardroom yet, because we wanted you guys, the executive committee, to kind of decide, so we remain flexible, we can change it.
We usually have it the same day as the SPJ mini business session. That does mean we miss some sessions, but yeah, I would concur. If everyone's okay with that, it means you will miss part of it, but on the other hand, we'll have it from the other thing is usually is from 9 to noon, and I'll have to look at the schedule and see, for example, how much we have to consider, because we will have at least 2 large proposals on MATS task force, on policy review, and of course the long-term vision. Those will probably take some time for discussion and approval. So we decided in more than 3 hours, maybe 4 hours, that will not give you much time. I'm just saying, we may need a longer meeting, given that we have 2 large proposals.
There's a couple of ideas we thought, so there's no RV caucus anymore, so we maybe start 30 minutes
I
earlier,
would
go 30 minutes later, because the breakout sessions didn't start till
Are
1:30.
there board meetings you can go? Maybe even another time, I think you can start at 8. I mean, I don't know from 8 to be with people are.
I don't know if everybody here is gonna want to do that at 8. Andy's not here, so I don't know if the RDs who are here.
Usually that, that's why we started now.
I just think there's a lot, you're not, right, so it doesn't inform the board meeting, so I don't think it has to be there.
I think we can do it in a hotel bar. Give us the other full drink and we'll get back.
Okay, I thought it was so Thursday, as long as make sure you have enough time to discuss it. Okay, good. Let's do that. So, yes.
One quick thing about programming. We were asked, just so you're aware, we were asked, I don't think we mentioned the report, by an organization. There was a plan to take journalists from our conference to the Mexico border. We were back and forth, and I totally was against it, and eventually was able to rule over my other colleague, RTDNA, because of, mostly because of liability, and I don't want to take people from our conference. goal, So we're not, doing that. It's been sort of nipped in the bud on the side. And the other thing is we have a sponsor who wants to, the day before the conference, take a group of people to visit a military base to see a military graduation. Apparently there's a lot of interest in that for people who are covering the military and wars and stuff. And and they can take care of everything, but it would be kind of outside of the conference, so we're in discussions about that. But I did want to give you.
That's an outside discussion. This is actually the first time I heard that. This is on the planning committee, but Deb has a question.
That's kind of disappointing about not going to the border because it's probably the #1 topic in the Southwest right now. And, but you know, Society of Environmental Journalists does that all the time. They have tours. There's an extra charge though. So, and I'm sure that there would be those of us who wouldn't mind paying an extra charge and coming in a day early just to take one of those tours. But, you know, there should be a way to do that doesn't take away from the rest of the conference.
Well, if we can figure out a way where if something happens to a reporter while there, that we're not liable, and someone says, well, this happened at SPJ convention.
Are they going into Mexico or just staying?
No,
Well, here's the thing, we don't have the ability, people are organizing it, to tell a grown person, you can't go around that thing and go over and step foot into Mexico. They couldn't guarantee us that, or that someone might not get left and not get on the bus. So there just wasn't enough, in my view, guaranteed. And then I ran it up the channels, our lawyer.
You sign a waiver if you go take a scuba diving class. I don't know, to me, it just seems like, I'm assuming these are adults and not high school kids with at least 18s. And they don't need their parents to sign.
And that's kind of, check with us, maybe SCJ can give us some guidance, they do it all the time.
Yeah, I think it's really smart. That is definitely another topic, and we should probably move on for now. It's the first I heard about it. I don't know if the planning committee has discussed it.
Yeah.
Okay, I think it's worth further discussion based on this. So, anything else EIJ related? No? Okay. Okay, well, I have a break. We're actually, oh wait. Oh, okay. We're actually a couple minutes behind, but this is just a 10-minute break. Come back here at about 1:45.
Well, the coffee's not.
Oh, no, the coffee break is, we have one more break after this, everyone. We're gonna have another break in about an hour, we're gonna coffee and. This is just.
So how far is that would be all.
And we'll have coffee the next break. Especially when I woke up. We're sitting there at 5 minutes. She's keeping my eyes open. It's like I chose it for coffee. And we're discussing finance for 2.5 hours with no caffeine. Oh no, I'm not watching anymore. It's true, it's true, it's true. So I'm sorry to have to do this to you in the late afternoon, but we're about to go to the finance section and discuss EIJ site selection and finance. But the good news is we have coffee coming at the end of the finance discussion. Okay, so I will call the meeting back into session. And we'll begin with a discussion about the future EIJ site selection. I hope you've all had a chance to read that memo. Okay, and is it Alex or Josh Rod, or are you going to make the?
We're going to double team you guys.
Tag team, excellent.
Is there a need for PowerPoint? Okay.
If
there's a need
and
for
this is on
PowerPoint,
page
I can do
62
that.
in your packets.
So we have presented the report in your board packet. I hope you have all read that. And just to give you a little bit background about myself, I joined as Director of Conferences and Events last year in June. I attended EIJ 18 just to get an idea how that works. My background is in conventions and conferences. Before this, I was coordinating a convention attended by 25,000 people. So I'm pretty much familiar with, obviously, event planning, conventions, conferences, and projects like this. One of the things that I told Alison right then and there is that I felt the rates that we had for these conventions were pretty high, based on my personal experience of the last 18 years. And I said, going forward, our focus should be somehow to lower the rates, because for attendance, that is one of the critical factors. That's what we thought last year. We ended up paying some penalties because we could not fill the block last year in Baltimore. So that was one of the focus this year. So 2021, we are proposing in New Orleans, 2022 in Philadelphia, although we have a second option for Boston, 2023 Tampa, Florida. So those are our 3 options. And we have given information about the hotels, the room blocks, F&B minimum that our contracts will require, and features for each hotel and partners that we would have partnerships with in these 3 cities.
We are asking that you vote on approval or not today. This is kind of customary because they're holding the contracts for us and they won't hold them a long time. You'll note that we are offering New Orleans as an alternative to Minneapolis because we've been asked last September to see what it might cost us to get out of Minneapolis. That amount would be about $30,000 to break the contract, and we believe that we'd be able to make that money up in New Orleans because of the rate, the hotel rate is better, the city is sort of more attractive for some people, and so we think we might be able to make it up. I think that Bashar has information, some additional information to remind you of Minneapolis. But I should note that right now, we don't know that we will have a partner in Minneapolis, and all of the other conference dates and cities that we have given you are based on us being alone. And if we are not alone, perchance, it would be a really small organization. And I don't want to name names because we're being recorded, but organizations that would bring somewhere between 450, 600 potential attendees. So much smaller organizations.
I several questions. The first is, what happened to our deal with Marriott? You were going with the same chain so we could get lower prices and did that for several years. So I want to know what happened with that. Are we still using the conference planner that we've used in the past? Because my understanding is we don't pay her. It's like when you get a car broker, it's the car broker that gets paid, not us. And then I did express this concern in an email to staff in advance. In a 6-year time frame, there's no West Coast location. I'm not okay with that. Even if they don't have one today, we should designate a year for a West Coast location. I think that's paramount. We're a national organization. And lastly, this schedule goes out a year beyond what we normally do. And with all of the changes and uncertainty, I don't know if it's wise to select a place for 2023 today.
Okay, so we do have the same person currently who does our hotel stuff. Her contract is up in August of this year, I believe. It is my view that the rates that she gets us at hotels are high. And of course, I can understand why they might be high because she gets commission on them. So we've done lots of research and we've been able to come up with rates that are $40, $50 less, which is why I hired Bashar, because he's known in the industry for being able to get sort of lower rates. That's the first thing. The second thing is I had a conversation with her before EIJ, before last EIJ, and because I wondered why we didn't have like all Hiltons or all Marriotts. And she, as she explained to me, that she had gotten the mandate from the previous administration, RTDNA and whatnot, that we should seek out hotels with the best rates and the best sort of setup. Because in every city, that Marriott might not have the best layout in terms of like bar area, seating area. So that there was a movement to be a little more flexible so that the hotel would fit the needs of the organization instead of being roped into just one hotel. That was the explanation that I received. I've spoken to Bashar about us having a deal with one hotel, and he was in the process of researching it to see whether or not that's something that is feasible. And as to us stretching West Coast, so Bashar looked at about 60 different cities, and we looked at almost every place except for Vegas and LA. We looked at San Diego, San Francisco, Portland, Seattle, and the prices were really high in terms of food and beverage and hotels. We went back up to talking to Lauren and looked at LA, and I guess I tried to tell you. Some of the like and LA.
I mean, we have done it throughout the year, San Francisco, we got those at 279, 3,000, that's going to impact our training. So it's a board place, but I agree, that's because the national organization is to become every post, I think that's a good one, but I think we should see how we can develop one way, maybe some of you are in the process of talking to see who'd be there, I'm going to send emails. It's possible we can get some lower rates, 120, 180, and if that fits, then absolutely. Okay.
Next 3 questions to Michael, Deb, and then Tess.
Lord, the plan is going to make an excellent listening support that we should try to get away from being on the East Coast. Obviously, being Connecticut, I enjoy the fact that we have a 6-year stay is drivable for me, but you know, it's not just about the Northeast, and we feel a lot of members on the West Coast. So, you know, even if it's expensive, maybe it doesn't happen as often in the rotation, but we should make sure that we're, you know, not just going to the West Coast. It's a 6-year stay, we're only once we're going west of Mississippi. So we do need to be mindful of trying to move around to where all of our members are.
Yeah.
So I've got 2 questions. First is that New Orleans is right smack in the middle of hurricane season. And we run a real possibility with the increase in hurricanes is that we might have to move at the last minute. So has anybody looked at Phoenix? I mean, Phoenix is just, Phoenix is hot, but it's not as hot as New Orleans in that time of year.
I did look at Phoenix several properties, again, the rate was, and F&B minimum was a little bit higher, so when we thought through everything, we felt that we should, try to focus on the rates rather than.
We just want to make sure that if we're by ourselves and we do not have RTD&A, that we don't lose our shirts. So we were taking into consideration the price of the ticket, the hotel room, for people, as well as the attractiveness of the city, so we'd be able to get enough crowd, and also food and beverage. We don't want to promise 50,000 in food and beverage if we can't make those numbers, and it's also the hotel rate too. So those are what we were considering. We'd love to be on the West Coast, and I think certainly it should be in the rotation. It looks, Lauren, like we have 3 different years, but really we don't. New Orleans is Minneapolis. So we've only added the 2 years worth that we did, which is Philadelphia and Tampa. So we can stay in Minneapolis.
I'm not suggesting we stay in Minneapolis. I'm the one that asked about getting information to move it. But I think Deb's point about hurricanes is something that's a concern that we need to consider. And we typically just pick 1 more year out. So since we're dealing with this situation, it's going to be new for us because an SPJ only convention post EIJ is going to look very different from what an SPJ only convention looked like pre-SPJ. So to not commit ourselves to something that we might want to be tweaking after the first time we have one of these, I'm suggesting we don't go past 2022.
Let's come back to that important point after we go through the other questions. Tess, Victor, then Kelly.
I know not everyone wants to travel to Idaho, but Boise would be a location to look at, not just because I just moved to that area, but because it is a vibrant, believe it or not, vibrant city with really, really cheap cost of living. I would imagine that it's not terribly expensive to do this kind of event. Spokane, Washington, Salt Lake City, Sacramento, Reno, those are all cities that maybe they're less glamorous and they're not a huge, big metro, but they're all very fine cities that are on the West Coast that would be good options to look at least.
And supporting that, a lot of these cities are they're hotbeds for journalism because of the growth of the West, the rebirth of a lot of these cities. There's a lot of opportunities for some strong panels there on a multitude of issues. So.
No, I agree. Some of the cities that we really wanted, because the staff kind of brainstormed, some of them don't have the hotel capacity. So if you're interested in going across 2 or 3 hotels and dividing where people stay, we could do that. But if we want a hotel that can handle our exhibits and expo and the rooms, then some of the cities, like in North Carolina, Spokane, some of them were not, they just didn't have the capacity to hold us.
Reno would be good because it's a lot cheaper than Vegas, and they've got
That's what she said.
Grand Sierra Resort. That's like a full service everything. And 10 minutes from the airport.
And I would submit Salt Lake City hosted the 2002 Winter Olympics, so hotel space is not an issue there.
That's a good point.
Right, Victor.
I'm posing the question. I don't know the answer, but as we're doing price point comparisons to select cities, I would imagine we're also looking at how other similar size associations are able to pull off. Like NICAR was just in Newport Beach last month, so I'm guessing that there's some similarity in the draw we would have versus what they bring in. Or IRE was last June in Phoenix. So if we're kind of looking at the same numbers, and they're really high for us, and so we opt out, I'm curious why others are opting in. Just something to look at.
Yeah.
We have followed them, but as you said, we look to see what the other cities were doing. But they are not considering like Spokane and Sacramento, and we probably should.
Yeah.
Especially Reno.
Yeah, Reno's a good location, lots of airports, you can put it in the Grand Sierra Resort alone and have room to roll around in your 10 minutes from the airport.
Okay.
Several points. We've been in New Orleans, I think, twice in the last decade. So I mean, the hurricane argument is name one hurricane other than Katrina that's hit New Orleans in the last 50 years.
What about the one that did the tail end a couple of years ago? There's a tail end one that kind of
That outruled the whole Southwest.
Yeah, I was gonna say, then, if we're gonna worry about hurricanes, we can't go to Miami, we can't go to Tampa,
Florida,
we can't go anywhere in Texas. If we wanna worry about tornadoes, we can't go anywhere in the Midwest. Give me a state, and I can give you a reason not to go there in September.
That's
You know,
Hurricanes are very terrifying. They're completely foreign, very terrifying.
I'm willing to risk it for Honolulu.
Yes.
Okay, the staff has put together a proposal that has a lot of positives in it. I mean, for one thing, the hotel rates between Minneapolis and New Orleans, we're looking at $150 as a room rate, which is quite unheard of. I mean, in New Orleans in late September is actually pretty nice, and the odds of a hurricane are still very slim. You know, and but we take that chance anywhere, you know, anywhere we go. And so I just don't understand this thought that, well, we can't go to New Orleans because of hurricanes. Well, it's always somebody's season somewhere.
But I do think we're about moving out of Minneapolis because that's their high season. Yeah.
Our current 4-year rate average is 198.
So we're saying,
the next three.
So we would be
Our
saying.
next 3-year room rates are 171. So we have brought it down from 198 to 171. On the F&B, our average is 50,000. We brought it down to 25,000. We're already going into that direction for the next 3 years, but we want to cut down these, rates and what we owe to the hotel and all of that. But also some other ideas, how do we bring in more revenue, but that's a discussion for maybe another time. We've done that at the staff level, but we'll discuss that with you as we go.
Okay, so I also have a question about the dates for New Orleans, because I hear from my advisor colleagues that this is the beginning of the semester, it's the end of August, and so that impacts student participation, and we have a ton of students go to our conferences. So I'm wondering if we are looking to go to New Orleans or wherever we go, to push it earlier into August rather than later December or early October, I think is really problematic for students, which are a huge part of our conference.
September?
Moving it into September or early October, when you do it at the beginning of the semester.
We've rarely done it. I remember once in the last decade when we did August, and once when we did October. And
yeah, we did October before EIJ. We either did September, October before.
Yeah,
right.
We did November in the 70s. Often.
Yeah, particularly election years. It was after the election.
It was usually the weekend after the election.
Yeah, for what it's worth, there's never a good time for the academic schedule. I mean, there just isn't. It doesn't exist. So you're going to get periods where, we've had it our first week of the semester. I would not do it before school starts because they're screwed. And it's just, you're never going to hit the good time. You're just never going to do it because they've got internships in the summer or jobs in the summer, and they're not going to come. Or the semester starts, and so you factor students in, and I don't say it's in Belmont, to be honest with you, I have yet to find a time period that actually works in down.
Merwin has his hand up.
Just for the board's information, the historic time for SPJ conventions up until 90s, sometime in the 1990s, was always mid-October, except in presidential election years when it would be pushed back to after election day in November. It was moved up to September because it was becoming too expensive wherever we were looking in the middle of October. When we made that decision then, is when we actually started losing a lot of student participation. But mid-October was not too bad for students. Earlier it was not good, but the board at the time decided the most important thing to do is go down the cost. That's where we
Yeah, I did. So, two questions about dates. So, school year starts in late August?
Yeah,
Or early
Those
September.
are recorded.
Okay, so, that is that question, but it looks like we're gonna have Philly, but that's Labor Day weekend? That an issue, or is that?
They may on Monday, which is, we have things like that.
And some people find it, good because they bring their families and they do like a long.
Monday is
kind of
off
vacation. The one thing is that we hope to not be last, to not be the last
Right.
conference. Because after people have spent money and all IRE on it and we're the last, it's harder to get sponsors and it's harder to get people to come because they've already spent all their conference time or money.
Okay, there's one thing I think I should mention, which is kind of elephant in the room, which is that RTD&A is with us definitely through 2020, and they have not committed one way or the other to be on 2020. I mean, they're not that they're not coming, but they won't commit. So I guess one of my first questions is, have we looked at these venues as being workable both if we have a big turnout because we're there with RTD&A and multiple of the groups, or if we're there on our own, or maybe with one much smaller group that brings others in?
So I took 2021 contract as like a sample for what was already done, and I used that as the template going into 22 and 23, assuming that it'll be a standalone convention. So meeting space wise, we're good. Even if we have to bring in another group, we should be fine because it can hold 1,500, 1,800 people. So space wise, we're fine. And we have lowered the room block so that we're not liable for, like we ended up paying, penalties last year. So we're not liable for room. So room block is smaller, but meeting space is same.
Okay, well, 1,800 is about what I think we were at 2 years ago when we had RTD&A and NAHJ. So that would be about right. And that would be the maximum, but we can still afford it. In other words, if we're there on our own and we have only like 1,000, it's still affordable.
I mean, on the financial side, I discussed with Jake, we did some accounting numbers, we put together a plan side by side. 2018 actual numbers, what we did in Baltimore with RTD&A, and if we were to go alone. And obviously some tweaks have to be made going forward if that's the case. But I showed to him how if we do it alone and we do it right, we should be actually making more money if that's one of the focus we have. And I've shown that with very reasonable, numbers. But we can do that. I mean, we can go into details later, but just so that you know.
And in terms of the $30,000 fee for breaking contract in 2021, if we do change venues, we looked at ways we finance that. Is it that we believe we'd be more likely to get a partner and make up an additional $30,000 in sponsorships? Is that the logic?
Yeah, one of the things is so here's where we started. We said if we go to Minneapolis 2021 alone, what if our attendance tanks? What if we don't get booths filled? What if our actual numbers go down? So if you're in a hole to begin with, then 30,000 really doesn't matter. On the other hand, if we go to New Orleans with some new energy, with some new ideas, and we're able to bring in more sponsorships, more booths in the expo, our revenue should go, in my estimation, should go pretty high. If your revenues go high, then 30,000 should not be a big number to kind of, balance that out. That's how we thought, and we discussed about
But
it.
the 30,000 would be on us alone. I mean, we wouldn't share that because we don't have a partner.
it's
That
our
would be our
contract,
cost.
yes.
Yeah.
And why are we against Minneapolis at this time? I mean, what's the thinking on the staff?
The staff is not against Minneapolis.
You're neutral on this topic.
Yeah, we're
Are
pretty
you- are you-
neutral.
yeah.
We're pretty neutral on it. I mean, I think that some, if I can, I think in related to our discussions, I think that some people are worried about attendance numbers in Minneapolis if we're alone. Because if we're alone, which it looks like we may be, this will be our time to really shine so that going forward alone, people say, that was a really great conference. And so it's really, we have to do it very well. But we'll make it happen and make it as successful as possible. But I know that there was some concern on the board, and so we started looking into it and so.
Right, no, I think we asked about it And why do we feel as though we could be alone? What's at play there to the extent that you can offer it in a public session?
Well, there were many discussions and some deadlines, and none of the deadlines have been met. And I personally made calls to say, what do you think? And so, and it's getting late because we have to decide or we won't be able to get out at all on Minneapolis. And so my understanding is that our partner may partner with a previous partner.
Well, we don't need to go down that area because in fact, there are many potential partners we could approach.
Yes.
For 2021,
And
especially
we
New
have.
Orleans, who we have not spoken with, or we have maybe perhaps spoken about Minneapolis, but not as many.
Just Minneapolis.
What time period will we have to then sell it? I mean, in other words, if we switch to New Orleans, the idea is, I guess, we then go out and start flogging it like crazy to find. I mean, we can be there without a partner, but we would start trying to sell it now. How long will we have before we get those commitments?
On sponsorship?
Well, no, I'm actually thinking partners, because people have to
Yes.
commit. I mean, organizations, 2021 is actually coming up very quickly for national.
So the one organization who has expressed great interest, we've spoken to the ED and the president of their board about a number of things.
Right.
One thing they committed on, which is the next thing is they want Washington DC.
Right.
This part. So they don't want to have a discussion about Minneapolis until we agree.
Okay.
So we are courting other people.
Right, okay. I mean, I think it comes down to whether we, okay, Matt?
I had a question on the 30,000, so one hope to pay that right away, I assume. Is that half SPJ and half foundation, or is that all SPJ?
No, it's SPJ. And it comes out to two small, what Hollywood calls small grants. So if we got two $15,000 sponsorships, that would close that 30,000. There's also the option of going to New Orleans and saying, we want to come, you really want us. We're gonna have to pay a penalty. So what can you give us to offset?
Out of this contract.
Yeah, but we can't do that until we know.
And just to add to that, both are Hyatt brands, so I will talk to Hyatt headquarters, the central office, that we're not switching the brand, it's still in Hyatt. So maybe every contract is different, we may be able to lower what we owe them. Instead of 30, they may agree something lower than that, so that's something we'll add.
So to be clear, the document you put together assumes solo, just us from New Orleans on. Is that right? And then also assumes an exhibit hall or not?
Yes.
Because RTD&A, of course, has brought us the giant exhibit hall that we've come to think of as EIJ.
Actually, New Orleans exhibit hall is, we can put 100+ booths in there if we wanted to. That's not how big we probably would be. But if we had more than 100, we could accommodate that in the exhibit hall. They have one hall which is basically an exhibit hall. So space-wise, we are good in New Orleans. As I said, if you have one or two other organizations that we can bring in, we have enough meeting space to do that.
Okay, but I think what I'm really asking is it feasible and possible that we can stage, that we can fill an exhibit hall on our own? We have now, somebody who we contract out for the sales of that. Would we retain her, for example, and work with her to sell that space? I mean, is that your anticipation?
Yeah, I see no reason not to keep her for going forward for a while.
Oh, we
Yeah,
can't
for
talk
just a
about
while.
specific personnel. The idea is we have a consultant like that.
We have the capacity to do it ourselves. Of course, the exhibit would be smaller and largely focused on recruiters who are recruiting for jobs and that sort of thing. But I do think it'll be smaller, and I can't answer the question of whether it'll be harder to get broadcast recruiters, but I would think that they would want to be in the same space as the other people.
Right.
I also had a question about the hotel locations specifically in those cities. One of our colleagues did a little bit of Google Map research and shared that the hotels in New Orleans, Boston, and Tampa are not in the central region where there's a bunch of restaurants and all this other stuff. They're more standalone on their own. And that's a bit of a concern because typically Well, definitely the students, but a lot of people are looking for restaurants that are cheaper than what's in the hotel. They want to be able to go down places. They felt they Uber or whatever the airport, because they want to be able to just get wherever on foot what's at the conference site.
Sure, I think Philadelphia Marriott is right downtown, so it's in the, middle of everything. I don't think there'll be any problem with that, but for high frequency, New Orleans, I'm gonna make a site visit. I've done some Google, I think, but I'll go there and see how
It's about a 10 walk. But there is a streetcar line.
I think in 2021, we obviously have a more complicated decision about it. Do we want to, I don't know, do something really figure out if people are willing to pay the 3,000 the breakup fee and go to another location and then discuss the specific because of the notice? Because we find out that people are not willing to pay the 30,000 and we don't need to pay, it's not discussing it. Yes.
I do have one question. Even though it is not truly West Coast, do you think that if we held it in Minneapolis, we would get some West Coast people? No, okay, that's right.
I think we can do this.
It used to be the West.
Can we take Tampa off the floor and say, I mean, in your discussions, consider this and consider Reno or some other place for 2023?
What I think I'm suggesting is that we actually start with 2021 and say who actually would support a breakup fee if we can get a site, a hotel that we think would be better to sell. Because I don't want to spend any more time on that if people aren't in support of that.
Can I
Yes.
ask one question about if we do have to, bite the bullet and pay the 30,000, how confident are you that we could make that up if we go to New Orleans?
I spoke to Holly and she's very confident.
Okay.
Okay, so let's put it
yes.
this way, what would you bet your paycheck on?
It's 1 month.
All right.
Yeah, what was the, when we didn't meet the obligation for hotel rooms, what was the cost to get out?
Last year in Baltimore, we paid 26,000 because the attrition was 80%, we didn't meet that, so.
And that was our part.
No, 13 was ours.
Right, and
Okay.
just, RTD&A also paid a similar amount, we discussed it in great detail, and it is another thing that made us less.
Yeah, total was
mentioned.
If the staff is confident that it's worth it, then I'd be okay.
Do we want to have a show of hands? Who think it's worth it if we can find a site that we can attract perhaps more partners, more attendees, and all that? Okay, I believe that is the majority. Okay, so we are all willing to break our contract. So now the decision is, do we know enough about New Orleans? 2021 is coming up. We have time for 2023. 2021 is like right around the corner from convention planning. Do we feel confident enough in this location, or?
Are there other locations in the city that we can, or is
We
this
can
the height
explore
of?
more. So far, this is the lowest I got, so, but, well, we can explore more. Even if New Orleans is not the best city in your, thought, then we could even explore more cities, so.
And we've been in New Orleans twice in the past 10 years, and I want to say we were at Sheraton.
We were, and it was directly across the border.
And the location was perfect. So I don't know if the price is comparable or close, but it worked out really well.
Yeah.
If we got, and I'm fine with New Orleans, but if we are still looking at other cities, Reno has come up several times. Is there time, I'm not necessarily, but is there time to explore Reno if we wanted to?
That's a good question. I do think we need to make a decision on 2021 very quickly. I'm not certain if people want to explore alternatives, we'd have to hold a Zoom meeting very soon and vote on it, because I really think we need to sign this. What is your time period to sign the contract on New Orleans?
16 and 17.
May 15th. That's how much
Yeah, I mean,
because the rates keep changing there.
Well, one thing to keep in mind is the Hyatt wild card, right? That if we go with Hyatt in New Orleans, we might get some favorable rate.
That's
right. So if there's a Hyatt in Reno, I don't know.
And it wasn't Sheraton, because it was right across the corner. I mean, I don't know, I know you put a lot of work into negotiating this, but
We appreciate your work.
We do. And I think Reno is an option, doesn't have to be for 2021, but,
Another thing to consider, it's a great break. It's the middle of the country, so people can get their relatives. No one from the East Coast has to go to Reno, no one from Reno has to go to Miami or wherever. We are, as we will discuss later, we are at a critical point to restore numbers of membership and think, like I said, this would be a relatively inexpensive conference, relatively inexpensive to get to. It's 3 or 4 days, middle of hurricane season.
I'm just saying.
I would, if when we get to that point, I would be willing to make a motion that we just decide today that we're going to do it. It also gives us more time to get a partner to, let our TD know this is what we're doing and see if we can get them in.
we pretty much have to make a decision in the next month, which is not a lot of time to.
So,
actually
I'd be willing to make it today.
What, do you want to make that motion that we approve?
When the time's right.
Okay. Should we, if you
Well,
want to make a
let's
motion,
still talk
for a
before-
second,
Can
we
still
can
talk?
actually discuss it both.
Can I ask a question before we make the motion?
Yeah.
So, Basharat, if you had a month in New Orleans, do you think you could get a better rate, or is this 150 the best you
I
can get?
think I can, if
That's
Sheraton
good, right?
is the only other option, I can check with them very quickly, although I have sent RFP to every hotel, so I don't think they were interested in bidding. I doubt I will get less than 149 in.
Yeah, I too.
In the city.
I am concerned about the date.
But I'm willing to check with Sheraton. If I don't get that rate, then would you allow me to go ahead with higher?
Could we approve the city? That's another thing. Are people willing to approve the city, but give Basharat a few more weeks to see if he can get something in September at another hotel?
Well,
In New Orleans?
I can get the same hotel a week after this, which will be the beginning of September.
Okay, so where that is concerned, make sure you're looking at the Jewish high holidays.
Yeah.
The best way to do that is go to hebecal.com, HEBCAL. Alternatively, ask me or Sue or Erwin or someone else who can answer that question. But we need to make sure we avoid Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur.
Yeah, O&A is paying $219 per night at the Sheraton in New Orleans this
Oh,
year.
that's what we stayed.
What's the date?
Yes.
They're a week after ours this year, September 12th.
This year.
Yes.
So there's quite a.
That's
It's a nice hotel and great location, but that is a big difference, especially for students, so.
But we'd have to be later in September around the, checking for holidays.
So 2021, the first weekend in September is Labor Day weekend.
Okay, but are there
So
the
would
holidays?
that-
And Rosh Hashanah.
Rosh Hashanah, September 7th and 8th, 2021, Yom Kippur is September 16th.
So you're fine. No, you're looking at the 2021 is September
So the
19th,
first one
20th.
is September.
That's Rosh Hashanah.
Yeah, so actually, August.
2021?
This time frame is good.
Okay. So actually, that makes these dates look better. Would anyone like to make a motion? Or would you like to be the one to make a motion for this, proposal?
It's just.
Okay.
So the dates to avoid are just these two.
Well, is avoid like the same.
Sure, I moved to New Orleans at the rate later in September around the Jewish holidays, separate from the Jewish holidays.
But they said August is fine, you said August date is okay.
I actually thought those days, August 24th to 29th would be okay, given the fact that the first half of September sounds like they have the Jewish holidays, but
I would say I think late September, it'll be cooler in New Orleans, and classes will be established and kids can get away. I just don't think kids are gonna leave the second week of class.
It's the second week of class?
It would be at LSU, it would be at Arkansas.
Did you get the same rate in late September?
And
I don't know.
if it's the
That is
first
probably
week of
not
class,
right.
it'd be even worse.
I'll have to check, but that
Okay,
is.
so when you say, we'd be talking like the 23rd, because you can't.
23rd and later.
Right, because the 16th is Yom Kippur.
Yeah, I told you, because when I talked to them, I told them about September being our first priority. When they come back to the date, that means we don't have the other. So I would doubt that I can get any other dates with this hotel.
What percentage of our attendance is students?
Oh, quite a lot, like a third. But
More than 30?
we've had it in August
Usually a third,
within the, it is about, yeah.
We've had it in August, so
35.
I checked the dates.
I'm less convinced that August is a problem, because I know we had it in August in the last decade, and,
That was one convention I did not attend. I can't miss the first week of classes.
95 degrees, 95 degrees.
see, I love
That's
that.
I was there in 2004 and I almost killed them.
Climate change is making that problem.
Yes, you
no
can't
matter where you
find
go. and Climate change is making that problem.
So what are we doing? I do like New Orleans, I think, and it's an amazing rate. It sounds like the debate is only on these days in August.
But you said you could check the first weekend.
What are some of the
But
other
it sounded like,
dates?
Basha, you didn't think you could get September of that.
No, that's fine. So what are some of the other dates that you want? Like late September or?
And then we're saying like the final week of September, the 23rd.
After September 18th,
Right,
we'd
so,
avoid
yeah.
the Jewish holiday.
So we're
between
talking
the
about,
18th and the 30th of September.
we usually do, we usually do Thursday, Sunday, so like the 23rd or 25th. Or also if we did the 10th to the 13th, it would be between the two.
Yeah, that would
be
be
fine.
that'd be the Friday and Sunday.
Right, so we do Friday, Sunday. Yeah, between or after, just not on.
Yeah.
So if you.
A lot of them.
Anytime,
Yeah, so not the week, not the week.
September 9th through the 13th would be fine, and any time after September 23rd.
Okay, so we need to vote, we want to say that we want to go to New Orleans.
I know you're trying to.
Yeah, sure, yeah. If mine was a motion, maybe.
Why don't we say, contingent approval to what you have given us, unless we can get a better deal for these 2 weeks of September, and if you can't get a better deal in September, then we green light you for August.
Yeah, that's right. The time is very limited.
Yeah, let's just do that.
Okay, because we really do need to, guys down next 2 weeks, so.
I had one additional question. I know that everybody by voice vote is in on the change. Do we have any indication that RTDNA might be more willing to stay with us if it's New Orleans versus Minneapolis? I can talk to them.
And I don't discuss it. And we have a motion, I don't believe we have a second, but since you did a friendly amendment, we need a second, okay.
Can we get Philadelphia wrapped up in the same way?
Yeah, no, this is,
No,
we're doing
no, let's do
one conference at a time, we're voting on New Orleans 2021. We have a vote, a second on the table for the amendment. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Nays, abstentions. Approved. New Orleans in 2021.
So just to make, so we will try the September dates, 18th through 30th. If we don't get them, we'll stick with what we have.
Right.
Okay, so.
And depending on the rate, I mean, if late September is gonna be like 220, I think we go with that.
Yeah.
I think, yeah, so,
But did I also hear you say September 5th through the?
yeah, like
Yeah.
the 10th, yeah, the
Okay,
9th through the
Okay,
13th.
folks,
or-
Dates
folks,
just after.
2022, and by the way, I don't think we're gonna have time for 2025, this discussion period. 2022 is ordinarily the year we would be approving that, just FYI, we had to revisit last year's decision. For 2022, we have a choice between Philadelphia and Boston. And the dates may be an issue for some people. Philadelphia is August 29th to September 5th. Boston is August 23rd to August 28th. So there is a week difference for those of you who aren't really late August. That would be in Boston. Now, this is really in downtown Boston from what I saw. There's also a slight difference, of course, in food rate. Those are the really key differences. Philly is a week later and a cheaper room.
209 Boston is by the way, it's a very good rate for that.
Yes,
city.
it's a good rate for that city. It's a great location from what I've seen. So it's actually maybe a better deal than what you get for your money.
But again, what's the date? August the?
Okay, so this is 2022, we're discussing. Philadelphia is August 29th through September 5th, whereas Boston is August 23rd through August 28th. So it's the week prior.
So you're basically telling every single educator that they can't come if that's the first week of classes. Just, and the only conventions for SPJ I've ever missed are when we put it on the first week of classes, because I can't not show up the first day of class.
We all, quite honestly, we have more time for the 2021 is urgent to replace. I am actually going to suggest we look at these locations at the later date. Can you do that? Well, because we don't have to decide this in the next 2 weeks. SPJ for 2021.
Actually, Philadelphia, I have to get back to them by Wednesday, this coming
Wednesday.
Because that's a city that sells very quickly, Boston and Philadelphia.
Yeah, did you check to see if they have any dates in later September? And they said that no, or have you asked yet?
I think I did, but I can double check on that.
Okay.
So one concern I have about the dates for Philadelphia is when you're talking about Labor Day weekend, you're talking about a heavy travel weekend and airfares might be higher.
Yeah.
So that's a concern.
Also in 2022, Rosh Hashanah is September 26th, the week after Rabbi before that.
It was long before that, but yeah, we go to September, we'd have to be earlier.
Right, yeah, right, if we push back, we can only push back to the 25th.
We can check dates in September for Philadelphia. Philadelphia is a city that you like.
What about Boston? That is a very good deal for Boston, and we just had our regional Boston. It is a good city.
Personally, I don't want to go about 200 dates. That's like, I feel we should pull it down, but Boston is that's the best I can get in Boston.
So speaking of youth concerns, we could, and if not for this thing going forward, it might make sense for us to take a cursory glance at least at first weeks, because if they do vary, we know they're they're either going to be last week of August or first week of September, but if we could get an idea, because for me, and I think for Hajid as well, August 23rd to the 28th, that is first week of class for Oklahoma for sure, and that would be problematic, while the second week might be better. So if we are really concerned about not only educating the students, maybe one of the committees could draw up a list of first weeks for, I don't know, major universities or something. Just to get an idea. If we think that a third of our attendance is going to be affected, that's a lot. Should we, going forward, if not for now, fine, but going forward, take that in mind so we can know those dates. We could easily find those because the universities figure that out.
Yeah.
At least a year in advance.
That is a very good rate on Philly, and you're saying we need to get back to them by Wednesday?
Yeah.
Anybody ever stayed in that Philly hotel before?
There's two Marriotts right next to each other. I stayed in the one next to that. It is a good spot. Right by City Hall, the Reading Terminal is right there.
So it was a little rough when
I hadn't
stayed
seen
there a
that
couple
too.
years ago. I did a training at an APME conference there. I thought it was a little rough around the edges.
That particular area?
Yeah.
There's like two of them right next to each other.
Yeah.
And have we done a site
I'm looking at
visit?
the maps, I remember it.
We'll do that.
Right by the Hard Rock Cafe.
We'll do that after you give us a,
Right, but if you have to reply to Philadelphia by Wednesday, are you going to do a site visit that quick? No.
we'll have to do, we'll have to do some, we'll have to give them some commitment and then do the site visit at the same time.
Yeah, can you do a commitment, a contingent on a site visit?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
No, without losing any money.
We won't sign the actual contract, but we'll do something where we agree on the date and the rate, subject to our approval of site visit.
Gotcha.
Yes.
Actually, August 29th to September 5th is a full week, so you're saying we would use it some dates within that range? I mean, normally it's like.
Tuesday to Sunday is what I have, the day when I will be
It's
back.
Monday.
Probably because staff goes out early and sets up.
Yeah, it may have, the date may be Monday, but actually it's Tuesday through Sunday.
Okay. Do people have a strong preference between Philly and Boston? I mean, if we take out the other factors, August, and obviously the price is gonna be different.
Yeah, I just think Boston, we're not gonna be able to keep the price down.
Yeah, well, so the answer, there's two issues. It's the Labor Day holiday and the airline costs. And I don't understand how we can agree to something without doing site visits. Typically, we do site visits first.
Yeah, I think, and I don't know why they're telling you Wednesday. I mean, I don't actually believe it is Wednesday. I think they just, that sounds like a pressure tactic to me. I would want you to do a site visit. I agree. And the date, there is a problem with the Labor Day date, I believe. If you could check with both of these hotels, I really do think we should go a little later in September. So I do think we need more information there. What do other people feel though?
Yeah, I think 2 years in a row, it happened to be a conflict for schools. It happens once in a while, it is what it is, but it'll be 2 years in a row, it would be affecting the third quarter membership.
Yeah, and August, yeah. So maybe you could check in September at those hotels and some other hotels. Those cities are all right, but I do think we need to revisit 2022. And we'll do that soon, so that will probably be a Zoom meeting once we have enough information. And as for 2023, I don't know if you want to get into that now, but I mean, just
to search for West Coast locations.
Yeah, that would be
West Coast locations.
I think the whole 23 and that's something on the West Coast.
That would be good. That would be good. And that's
Exactly what I suggested.
Yeah, so maybe we can come back to the drawing board with 2022 to 2023. There'll have to be a Zoom meeting that you'll have to be on. So just FYI, we're probably going to have to take up some more of your time on a Saturday, in a month or so, once you have some proposals for us. But at least we have solved the 2021 conundrum, and you've learned a lot more from us on what we want for 2022 and 2023. So, okay.
I do have a question.
Yes.
Usually we hold these events in downtown hotels. But if we do get a resort, which is usually like 10 miles, 15 miles outside the city, and we get a good rate, you have better facilities, is that something that the board would be open to, or?
And then a shuttle?
The other part is, we had that happen, was it Miami or something?
Nashville.
Nashville. And it was limiting again for folks trying to hold a line on costs. There are hotel food you have to buy. I think of students and others, that they're really stuck. They can't go to McDonald's down the street or something like that.
Yeah.
I mean, it's okay for those of us who have the good fortune of being able to have school underwriters or, board stipends, but there are a lot of folks on fixed, they only have so much money to go around.
Okay. Thank you for the excellent report. You solved a huge problem for us in 2021. So for that, we thank you, and we will be back very soon to talk about this following 2 years. So very good. Now we have to move along. Actually, when I did the agenda, I did not realize that we had so many years to look at the site selection. So we ran a little longer, and we really need to talk about the plans so we can have to push back a little bit. But now maybe we're able to know.
So the finance committee met yesterday to go over the budget. And obviously staff is here to answer any questions you may have. Just looking at the how levels. One change that we made yesterday, there was a dues increase of $9,000 built into the budget. We took that out, used a little bit of the surplus that we had of about $5,000 in three accounts. Conference events, meals, and thank you very much. Outside services. And so with that change, the feeling being that there wasn't an appetite for dues increase at this time, given the industry's travails. And then the board, the committee asked good questions. We feel good about the budget. There are some kind of stretches in there, but we feel that
Allison explained to us, and Jake explained to us pretty well that we can reach these numbers. I will say there's just two other issues I want to call your attention to. One is the database system, which we can talk a little bit more about. There's a feeling that we need to change that. And then the other is at the foundation yesterday, there was a discussion to fund about 2/3 of an assistant director position at headquarters. If SPJ wanted to fund the rest of that third, that was not in Allison's budget, and the committee took no action on that. So as it stands, our recommendation with a acknowledgement that we're going to discuss the database is to approve the budget with that change, where we take the dues out and make it a balanced budget by using those three funds. So that short kind of top level production, I guess, open up to any questions you all might have.
So are we not going to further discuss the assistant director? I'm sorry, I missed it.
Yeah, no, what I explained was that the committee took no action on that.
Okay.
But if the board wants to talk about it, the board, of course, can talk about it.
Okay. If we're gonna talk more about that later.
Yeah.
So
There's a couple parts to this, but I think back, kind of summarized it. One is we have a balanced budget. We've added membership dues increase, which is really important. We found that $2,000 is very, very high, so that's important. That was something we were going to talk about. We do not have to talk about that. Also, there was a memo earlier in the packet, I should have mentioned it, it should have actually been on finance, to approve a new system. We don't need to take a separate vote on that. That's actually budgeted in the finance report. So if we go to approve the finance report, we're also approving this new system platform that's in there. So, and that was the staff's recommendation. And the third thing is the question of the assistant director, which is deputy director, whatever we want to call that title. That's not budgeted for. So we have a balanced budget, but without that, if we want to fund that, we would be going into a deficit budget to fund that. Or waiting to see later in the year whether further money comes up to fund it.
I mentioned that because it was mentioned in several reports that we received, how that was a necessary thing. So I just.
Right.
Yeah, and the finances of that were with the foundation's contribution, could be about $28,000 for part of the salary to benefits. Which the budget balance is now. We had a deficit budget last year. I think the consensus was a deficit budget 2 years in a row, kind of bad luck.
And one thing the newer members may not know, most of the staff positions are paid, sometimes it's 50-50, sometimes it's different, SPJ and foundation. Ron is a separate case because the foundation paid his position entirely, so they pay all of that. So what the foundation approved is they would approve paying their part of that, contingent on us approving it. So if we don't approve to go into a deficit, basically this time they wouldn't approve it. However, if at some point during the year we have money, grants, or we do federal sponsorships, this board could approve that at any time over the course of the year. In other words, just because we don't approve going into a deficit budget and financing that now, 3 months from now, 6 months from now, or even the next board could approve that position. And the foundation has already approved the idea of funding their half of it. Yes, Allison?
I just want to say on the record that the staff, we presented a balanced budget. It was never in our mind to present a negative budget because Jake and I have never presented negative budgets. In doing that, we made it as lean as possible. And so really it's not a matter of expenses, but really on the income side where we need to bring in. But we did include at the recommendation of our membership team, a 3% dues increase, which would mean $2.25 a year more for professional membership. And the dues have not been increased in about 9 years. So after the last night's meeting where we understood that there would not be a consensus on the board, because it's a board decision, because it's under 5%, to increase the dues, we cut some other money that's needed. I just want to make sure that it's understood that what we cut was not that. that it means a little bit less in participant travel to the convention. You know, we're gonna have to watch our pennies when staff go to the Sigma Delta Chi Awards and that sort of thing in order to get the 3% back. I just wanna make sure that, that's
Good point. So in other words, the budget is lean, it's balanced, but it's lean. There's nothing really to cut in the budget. And if we want to add any expenditures, we can get in a deficit budget.
Can I actually ask a question of Mr. Gratz?
Yes.
In the corner there. I'm on the foundation, I remember the vote, but was there a end date to Yvette's question about the money for a deputy director?
Yeah, I mean, keep in mind too, your fiscal year doesn't begin until August 1st.
Right.
But yeah, no, I mean, the only thing that would change, I mean, the resolution, I don't remember exactly how we worded it, but it probably is up to the 50,000, so that if the hire occurs sometime after August 1st, prorate the amounts. Essentially, what we're assuming is that 65% of the time of an assistant would be spent on foundation work. So we'll pick up 65% of the cost.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you. Any further questions?
Yeah, I'll raise a few questions. It would probably be good for the whole board to hear about a couple of the revenue sources, so we have a better idea of those numbers and kind of the plans behind those numbers. So specifically the fundraising line and what the plans are to bring in that amount of fundraising, and then also the membership line, the anticipation that we'll have a slight decline in our membership revenue, and I think we should hear about that.
Yeah, let's go with you. On the, we can't mention any foundation names, it would be inappropriate. But we have applied for foundation grants that we've never applied for before, and have been really working the foundation, I shouldn't say working, but really in deep conversations with certain foundations about income. And the trend is that more organizations, membership and nonprofit news organizations, are getting money via philanthropy, individual donors or major organizations, major foundations. And so we feel pretty confident that at least 3 of the ones of the 6 or so that we've been working with will give us money. The hard part is that on the fundraising line, it's for unrestricted. And there are only a handful of foundations that give funding for unrestricted. Now, there's been some precedents because NABJ just got millions. Report for, which is, we could say it's apples to apples, is their membership. And then there have been other organizations that have gotten money unrestricted to hire staff, pay bills, or whatever. So we're going to push hard. If you remember, for new board members, we had a fundraiser on staff for a short period of time, for like a month. And then when I came, I hired Larry. So he's our first real full-time, to my knowledge, development director whose sole job is to raise funds. And so since we are giving it 100%, we think that 76,000 is very modest compared to the millions that our partners have raised.
First thing I was just going to say is that from my experience in fundraising, one of the main points of success of fundraising is having a fundraiser really go anywhere. And so I want to say first that we're going to have you around for a while. Lynn and Lynn's going to retire the same as I do when she's about 100. So I'll be around here a while. I'm looking forward to building those relationships. That was the first thing I want to state. Is that I have a firm commitment to SPJ. Secondly, I think you talked about this before, is that part of the way of bringing some of the unrestricted funds is we have a large pool of people who follow us on social media or who are involved with us in some way. And it's just a matter of really focusing on motivating those people, those 100,000+ people on social media, to become more invested as well. It's all a matter of getting people who tell us, hey, I'm doing this one-time donation on my father who was a lifelong journalist or something like that. Motivate them to not only be regular donors, but to be members as well. So that's what we're really focusing on. We haven't really focused on
unrestricted gifts to SPJ as once in the past. So if we're giving, we're really going to focus on having unrestricted gifts to SPJ. So that's really going to be a key cost for us. As Alpha said, the gift SPC that we put into our grants are really important for us. I used to work for New York City, and I worked in the national office, and we got a lot of funding, incorporated the foundation. And the standard practice that we put in percent is that 5% that we would participate admin to. And maybe, of course, it was area funded, that was likely for 5%. It makes sense for us to get a new program if we can't pay for it, we do have a running program too. So if we get a $500,000 grant, I think $25, $50 of that will come into payment for administration fees too. And then finally, really working on our online presence, our online campaign. The one thing that we plan to talk about doing is being much more aggressive in our fundings. I mean, if you think about it, if you follow SPJ, you follow about, you follow RSF or something, when things happen, they send out information, they say, help support us and help be part of the solution. And so that's something you gotta be more aggressive with is getting people to be motivated to be part of the action to the solution. This is something that Matt and I talked about at lunch. We talk about when some of the environmental organizations, when something happens, their argument is, we need you to invest in us because the solutions that you want to happen won't happen without that. And that's one thing we really want to do is develop our messaging to really frame that, how important it is for them to give. Not just to train journalists, which is very important, but for the overall health of the journalism industry and your ability to hear information. If you want that, you need to invest in SPJ.
Thank you. And then on the membership, a 3% decline anticipated. Why? Just kind of following usually the trend we've been in.
Yeah, and also we looked at national trends for membership organizations in general, and most nationally, -2%. And then we sort of just looked at journalism organizations and also the number of journalists who are leaving the business. And we thought 3% was modest, and if it's less, then that's good, but a comfortable place. You want to add anything on that?
Well, membership for every organization is declining for a lot of reasons, but our number one complaint, if I can be brutally honest, I probably have said this before, but our number one complaint from our members is our chapters. They are an albatross. I'm sorry. I know y'all don't want to hear that because y'all come from good chapters, okay? So the good chapters are fine. We never hear from Region 3. Well, I take that back.
You never answer my phone calls.
We don't hear from them, and once a year they'll say, hey, we're having this, can you give us 2 free memberships? Happy to do it. Don't hear from New York, don't hear from Chicago, we don't hear from the good chapters, okay? They do their due diligence, but it's the rest of them that are just sucking the life out of this organization. And they're taking our members with them.
Because they're non-responsive, because they don't do any programming, they
play chapter dues and they don't get anything for it.
Exactly. And I have a file in the office of people that write notes on their renewals saying, I haven't heard my chapter in 2 years. Or I wrote to my chapter, they never write back. They're not responsive. Or would you tell my chapter I don't want to belong to them anymore? So and this isn't new, okay? This has been fairly ongoing for the years that I've been there. If it were me, our chapters claim they want to be autonomous, I'd let them be. Okay, I mean, we can still send them their money that we collect, but they're killing us, folks. I'm not kidding you. They feel like they have to pay what, if you say, now, did you want to pay your chapter dues? No. I don't ever hear from my chapter. Do I have a chapter? Well, I used to belong to the chapter, but I haven't even gotten an email in 3 years. Would you call my chapter and see if I'm still on the mailing list?
still has.
And then do you then like forward that to the regional coordinator or director or?
Normally I reach out, I don't go to the regional directors, I go directly to the chapter.
Okay.
I will make a copy of that and send it to them.
Oh, thank you.
Email it to them and say, look what we got, or I'll call them, it depends on how well I know them.
And my group is copying the regional director or coordinator.
Yeah. If you have any problem with any of my chapters, let me know.
Like,
You're proposing a 3% decline in membership. What was it this past year or the year before? Is that pretty much 3%, or are we projecting more or less of a drop than it was?
Well, other than that, just the overall trend for people not joining as much, because let's face it, our young folks, everything they need is on their hand. You know, they don't really need to join SPJ, and a lot of the colleges have gone to, Susie will correct me, I know, if I'm wrong. I think the campus, from what I'm hearing, is campus now do a lot of clubs. And so the whole chapter concept is kind of 1909. Sorry.
Well, our membership has declined since 2007 by a third.
Yeah.
So my question is,
I know where you're going.
I'm just wondering, the 3% projection based on our past couple of years of percentage decline, is it more aggressive than that or less aggressive?
I think that it's
Where did you get 3%?
well, I didn't, Caroline did, and she's not here. But, hold on. I trained Caroline, so, you know. She took a national trend, she looked at all of our numbers, because for years, we've kept the numbers, the weekly reports, you know, we've kept all those numbers. This past year, we had a perfect storm more than once. I missed, when we're gonna get into that conversation later. We had one invoicing that it didn't even invoice our chapters. I can't tell you what we heard about
I guess
that.
the reason I'm not asking to question you guys, I guess I'm
No, I don't
asking
feel
to inoculate
responsible,
you guys, because if the drop is more than 3%, I don't think we should come back to you and say it's your fault. So if you're basing this on an actual projection of some sort, then I think that inoculates headquarters and say, look, we based it on this figure.
Right.
Can't predict the future, but we did our best. We didn't just say 3%. So I think the board likes to know those sort of things so that
Well,
we don't question you later.
that's a really good question, because there's a bigger picture. Part of my mandate is to bring membership back to 7,000.
Right.
Which is a tremendous number to bring it to, when we're predicting a 3% decline, no increase in membership dues, which means we'll lose on the income side. So we took, when I talked to Caroline about 3%, are you sure it's not gonna be 5? She said, okay, we think that, because part of the problem is retention. And really, we have a problem with people who graduate in senior year from college, like our board member told us last year in a letter, saying, I'm moving to Baltimore, wherever she was moving, and I'm not gonna pay the $37 or whatever the membership was. And she laid it out why. And so we thought that 3% was, Jake's over here with his big, so we thought 3% would be fair once we looked at the numbers over the last 4 years, and we looked at the industry average when it comes to membership organizations of 2%. I really honest, know whether it might be 5%.
Allison, I think we're talking on two different tracks here. One is forward budget projections, and one is goals. Our goal is to raise membership. Our goal is not to lose it by only 3% decline. Our goal is actually to turn membership around, to stabilize it, and we set like a 2-year goal to get it back above 7,000, and hopefully soon in 2 years. But that's a goal. When we're actually budgeting for the upcoming year, the fiscal year, we're trying to base it on something realistic. It's been declining, and okay, I'm sorry, Jake has his hand up again.
Yeah, I'm just trying to, I have a history of the membership freezes prior for years. From the year before this, we're talking about the ending of July 31st, 2018 versus 2017, it declined 15%. And then before that, the year before the two comparisons, it increased 7%. And then before that, it was a 9%. So it kind of.
That was our trunk bump.
Yeah,
Seriously,
that was a
what it
Trump one, and we need another Trump.
Yeah, the 9% increase.
So, but I know that, you know, last year's budget, they did 2%, Carolyn.
So what you're basically saying is, if we lose 3% of our membership, basically you've saved us basically 12%. Because our trends were,
makes that keep.
our trends were a steeper decline than what you are now predicting. That to me, frankly, if we lose 3% of our members next year and try to get everything else in order, and strategic plan, everything else we talked about, I would consider that a huge victory. Because I'm honest with you. I've been on this board when we have lost, shedding hundreds of members a year. If we can just stem the bleeding first, and then we can study.
Plus, I think that, you know, Carolyn is an experienced membership person from before. You know, you didn't have real experienced membership people, and then Linda.
Whoa.
No, wait.
Besides
No,
you, I'm sorry.
But I just say, like, I heard that most recently,
Thank
several
you.
people. But what I was gonna say is that she also has Linda, who has all the history.
Okay, you're redeeming.
Yeah, that's.
When I said her big storms, Carolyn and I worked our butts off cleaning out the database. We had so many duplicates, like I'm gonna pick on Bill, he was in there 6 times. Now, as an active member, but that's not very small, because when they start doing new things, and looking for new initiatives, we put fake numbers in the database, and trying out to test and see if it works, okay? Terrorist kids were in there. I mean, that's just what we do. I did about 500 that came out.
So those declines are really like, we have dead people in that list.
We have a lot of dead people, but because we have to do it, because our chapters don't tell us when the number is
That's the other thing, and I asked this in the finance meeting, when we're looking at, if we said we have X number of board members and we don't give a another reason for that. So what you're talking about are the actual financial. Yeah, and that's really, that was 15% decline, but,
we also lost, a lot of members through, an invoicing glitch. And when we discovered it in September, I sat down with Caroline. We took the entire year of 2019, okay, 2018, and we rebuild everybody. We invoiced everybody that had lapsed in the year 2018. And we got several hundred members back. That's why we were coming to 5,700 that day. We got 6 times. That took 3, 4, 5 months to get all of them back. So we were able, because we had gotten down to like 5,300 members, and we're back up close to 6,000.
I think if we have only a 3% decline this year, that will be an improvement, but of course we're hoping for that. Now, I think we do need to get back to the budget. I see several hands. Are these about membership questions?
Yes.
Okay,
It's not so much a question as it's a comment. I think that once we get the new CMS system in, that'll be a lot easier. You know, we can do monthlies, we can do automatic renewals. You know, there's a lot of ways that you can use that to build the membership up. So I'm really glad that you all are going with Blackbot. So anyways,
I saw a hand over here, and I wasn't sure, I just saw a hand. Was that Victor or Jeff? Victor, was it you?
No.
Or Jeff? Well, okay.
Quick follow-up.
Maybe I just saw it then back.
Yeah, so just a quick follow-up. Staff at our finance committee meeting committed to a report on these membership issues that we had talked about, groups and deaths, non-members. So that's coming, so I'll have a better handle on that. I appreciate that. And the other report that came out of the finance committee is a development report, which we got last year. So we've kind of got a sense of what's to come, but we'll see in writing exactly how we kind of make these numbers. So you can expect those.
If we can actually get back to finance, I think it's pretty important. I mean, one thing I would like to say is this is an aggressive budget because we are projecting only a 3% decline in membership, and that is a much smaller decline. We're budgeting based on that. And we're also projecting an increase in fundraising. I mean, those are doable, but those are goals. We have a balanced budget based on some aggressive projections and of course, some cost cutting. I do think we need to talk about that because we do, one thing, and the new members may not know this, but formally, we need to approve the next year's budget in this meeting. Are there any comments on that? Budget or projection?
I do have one other budget question, and that's the, it's the last item in your overview memo, talking about the switch from our current database system to Blackbaud. And I wonder if you could just talk a little bit about why you think that's the best solution.
Because as we pointed out, we approved this budget, we've also proved that we don't need a separate vote. That's in the
right. And so that increase, it's showing you're spending 6,500 more in that category. So is that for purchasing that new choice or other things? And why did you go with that?
I can take that. So late last year, we put together a staff committee, formally the membership of the development staff members. And as you probably, I'm sure you guys all probably know, right now, with the way, ignoring the just complications of IMIS, if you actually look into the processes that behind IMIS, for example, my world for donors, if someone makes a donation online, I go to one website to get the credit card information. Then I go to another website to run that credit card information. Then I go to IMIS to upload the information on there. So it's a long process. So for example, what I do, when we have day giving on Wednesday, let's say I get 200 gifts. I'm going to manually put in 200 gifts over which will take me a good day or two to just credit card number, credit card number, credit card number. With this new system, with Blackbaud, once they put the information into the system, it's charged, goes into the database, all the information is recorded. If they're a previous existing member, you just add it to their information. If they're new, it all goes in there and it's populated. So it saves so much time for us. And so, yes, it's more of a cost, but I think we'll more than make up for it in the man hours that we don't have to do this stuff. And the same thing applies to membership. They go through that exact same process. So if that time is saved, then Caroline can really say, okay, let's look at strategy and how we grow membership now, rather than trying to maintain things. And so the thing, we looked at I don't know how many databases, and in this world, there's two real Cadillacs. There's Blackbaud and there's Salesforce. And Salesforce was okay, their feedback and was really slow to get back to us, which kind of scared us that they're trying to sell us something that was this slow. But the one problem with them is they require, give a piecemeal. We think, well, this particular company do this particular company do this. With Blackbaud, everything's all encompassing. Everything's in there. They run through everything all through one company. So it's a great one contact for us the entire time to help with the training, everything.
Lauren, I have a question.
Yes, so I know what a disaster IMIS is. I've been hearing complaints since I was first on the SPJ board in 1996 about problems with our database. So I completely agree we need something new. But the question I had is for Billy, since he is our most technology savvy staff member. I wanted to get Billy's take on the system and how everything integrates and speaks to each other and if we're going to have any issues.
Well, I'll preface this by saying that hypothetically, I'm for this, but can't lie to the room. I have not gotten a demo of this software yet. I've asked for one pretty regularly, and I have not sat down. Like I've heard the pitch, I've read about Blackbaud, I've done my own research, but like you, I've had a long relationship with IMIS, and that includes a lot of sales calls and a lot of salespeople telling me things I want to hear. And then I sit down with the software, and I don't envision this happening with Blackbaud. I'll say that. I think this is a good idea. But I sit down with IMIS, and then I say, well, where's the thing you told me was going to be here? Like, where's this? Where's that? What makes up for this functionality we're losing here? And they say, oh, well, we don't really have anything for that. And so I said, well, then why did you tell us you did? And on and on and on. And then 2 years pass, and then we start over. And we've done this. I can't tell you how many broken dreams on my computer databases that we're going to move to, in some cases, move the entire website inside of, only to realize it's untenable. Now, for Blackbaud, I don't envision that happening, but I also I can't answer technical questions about it right now because I have not sat down with it. I haven't really been a part of the decision-making process, although I've tried to offer my support and my insight as best I could. But there are things we have on the website that as bad as IMIS is, and IMIS is worse than any of you even realize. It also comes from a time when we could get them to write software that integrates directly with our site. Like they wrote bespoke software that goes into our site. And so we have to do a lot of manual processing, which is absurd. Yeah. But there are things where, like our awards portal, like where people enter for the MOEs and the SDX awards, those things are integrated into our website in a way that when something is an IMIS, it goes to our website and then it goes to that awards portal so that it knows whether members, whether an entrant should get a member rate or a non-member rate. So it's like small things like that that we have to be mindful for, because that likely is not going to be something we can bring with us. So what do we do then? There's skunkworks ways to do that, where we could manually input a member number into the awards database as soon as somebody joins. And then, we get a better solution later on. So there's workarounds I can envision, but I haven't sat down with the software yet, so I don't know firsthand.
And I would take the blame for that. That's my fault for not passing along it earlier for the kind of the playing around with it.
Mike, last question.
I've been around since Joe Skeel was otherwise awesome, but also a total Luddite. By his own admission, and I am really hinky about making any big database decision without the one dude in the room who knows all about it, not getting his hands dirty with it. Especially because whatever Billy's technical skills, he also just knows, well, the bodies are buried on that website and how it interacts with everything else. I know that Andy Schatz would be hard stricken if the awards program doesn't work. We're talking about budget. If you mess that awards platform in any way, you can lose $8,000 really quickly from MOEs and from SPX awards. So I'm not going to vote for something this big without knowing that anyone needs to touch it is touched.
What we can do, because this is part of the budget process, and we know we want to change the system from IMIS this year, we can vote to approve this budget contingent on Billy actually working with the system before we do the official switch to Blackbaud. Because once we've made that decision, we can go back. Well, we still approved the budget, and we have limited, the budget has a line for the.
We're not, we approved the budget, but we approved this expenditure too.
This is
money to buy something.
There's a line, and JP has gotten better, but there is some cost to switch it. So we're approving that cost with the budget, but we can say contingent on the numbers.
I mean, essentially, if we don't spend it there, we would have to spend it with
There's a
IMIS.
budget, another budget that's from the company, so that means you have to spend it on that.
No, we're approving the expenditure as part of the budget, but we can say contingent on. Right, so it's so important that we have the budget on the cap with the Blackbaud.
I believe you just put it in.
Yeah, I saw this today and you were here to a new database system, so that if there is trouble and you need to find something else, you have a possibility to deal with that,
But we won't have a number. What if the number comes in higher?
No, well, the number, we're budgeting for this.
Right,
We
we're
don't
not
want the
budgeting
number
to
to
be
come
on,
up.
we're talking about changing to a new database, take that upon.
But it's still a guesstimate on the number.
Correct.
Well, I mean, that's what a formula is.
Right, so.
Right, but I mean, so we have to find a database that fits into, if we say 10,000, it fits into 10,000.
No.
But what if we?
So first, Billy looks at it, if he's fine with it, we're done. If there's huge problems, then you go back to the drawing board, and then if something costs a little bit more. You
I mean, my prediction is that I'll be fine with it, but then I'll have a list of things we need to do while we're implementing that to work around our
It's a
deficiencies.
process. The budget will have approved this in like, so we go with Blackbaud, they do, we got any further vote from us. If they say, no, we want to go Salesforce or some other competitor, then they'll have to come back and it's more expensive.
Right, so we just
Okay.
need to change the budget.
I'm a former Blackbaud user. I can tell you from the user end of things that when we first, I worked as the publications editor, and I ended up being involved in Blackbaud for whatever reason. Because they used to have a website attached to it. Well, their website attached to it was horrible. They fixed it because we told them they needed to fix it. So Blackbaud is designed for nonprofit membership groups. I mean, that's what it's designed for. Once they fix their website interface, that thing just runs on rails. I mean, that's the reason that the museum that I used to work for can now do automatic renewals. It can do monthly renewals. It can do all sorts of things that I haven't seen any other CMS system be able to do, except maybe for Salesforce. But Salesforce is not built for nonprofits, and Blackbaud is. So I can tell you from my 9 years of playing around with it that at least from the user standpoint, I mean, I was really glad when they said that's what they wanted to do. So that's my 2 cents.
I make a motion that we approve the budget with the change to eliminate the dues increase due to money sorting, and then with reference to the database, assuming staff has approved it.
I think those should be separate
Contingency
motions.
to staff approval. What is it?
I think we should make separate motions on these things.
Let me first say, just to make it crystal clear, it is not a question of whether I'm for or against this move. I am for this move because, oh my God, like I've been trying to do this since my first day at SPJ. Terry Harper told me to, I won't even say what he said because it was profane, but I'm for this move. I like what I've read about Blackbaud. I think in a lot of ways it'll be a humongous path forward for us. But the question you asked me was whether I'd used it and what do I think of it, and I can't answer that yet. I want to answer that. I want to sit down with it, and I want to be able to make a list of the things that I need to then go do to make sure that our awards platform and every other part of our website is humming along just fine the second we switch databases.
And you should do your due diligence and everything you need to do before we switch databases. All we're approving is the money for the transition.
Yeah, okay.
We have a motion, we do need a second. Does anyone want a second? We can have further discussion, but we, for technical reasons, need a second.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a second. So thank you. Further discussion.
I just want to get clarification on the wording of your motion, Matt. So are you taking the word the line item Blackbaud out and changing it to new database? And adding, would you be open to that and then adding, contingent upon?
Make it friendly amendment.
Yeah, to make a friendly amendment of that and contingent upon, that we move forward with Blackbaud, contingent upon, Billy, that it's gonna work out.
Okay, so we have 3 changes to the budget as presented in your board packets. We are removing the 3% dues increase. We have taken some other cuts that Jake informed us about to make up for that 3% increase and have a balanced budget. And we're removing the specific reference to Blackbaud, but saying new database.
Right?
Yes.
Can I ask that, if staff is endorsing a dues increase, we haven't had it, like I said, I haven't had it in 9 years. I'm going to support that part of this. So how do but I support the other parts of it. So if you make it all one motion, that really makes it different.
Can we have a motion to approve the finance, and then you could, if you'd like, make a separate motion to say that you're amenable to a dues increase? Is that what you're saying, that you actually support the dues?
What have we been talking, what's the?
I think we all felt, and certainly the finance committee meeting yesterday, that the board was not amenable to a dues increase. So that's a separate matter. Right now, we have a motion on the table to approve the finance, the budget.
Well, I have questions about the dues increase, particularly I was waiting because I figured we were going to get to that separate part of the motion. So I don't support the motion as an omnibus motion.
So you want, well, we have to approve the budget, but you want to discuss the dues increase and whether the dues increase is necessary.
If you make a motion to change Blackbaud.
We can still have discussion.
I think this should be one motion, but if you want to have more discussion
But we
about
need
dues
one
increase.
motion on the budget.
We have more discussion about dues increase.
Amendments.
The reason why I kind of made that a small part of my discussion, because the board in January discussed this. It was clear consensus not to have.
I don't want to get the weeds because I did it, but I would like to say, I would like to ask, or the question to the people that are on the finance committee, that if our staff trying to balance the budget asked for a modest dues increase, what was the reason to go against that?
I'm happy to answer from my perspective. I think we've had 10 years of journalists peeling away from our industry. One. Two, every time I talk to someone and try to get them to join SPJ, they ask, okay, great, what is it? Well, San Diego dues are $10, I'm all in. National dues are $75, forget it. It's a very short conversation.
Can I ask a question of you guys?
Sure.
Did you guys look at what happened to membership the last time dues were increased? Because that was my second year on the board, and we had the same conversation. This gets back to the whole thing of like, we never looked at what we've done before. We raised the dues before.
That was a very different time.
It was a very different time.
That was a very different time.
No, actually, it was the beginning of the worst time.
Well, it was a healthier time than right now.
Okay, but here, I guess my question is, we raised the dues in our membership. No one could tell if that had anything to do.
Our membership is declined. And the only time we had a bump in membership was when we gave a preferential pricing. We temporarily reduced dues.
And then when that went away, the membership went back down. So I'm wondering, I guess what
I think our dues are too high. If you wanted a 5-word answer, our dues are too high.
Okay, I guess because it's hard to be, maybe it's true for other directors. When staff recommends something and the finance committee recommends something else, it puts us in a weird position of who do we hear from and how do we decide as directors? So I understand that I'm agnostic on this issue, actually. I just remember the past issue was, is it the amount of dues increase that really drives membership up or down? Are the dues just too high in general? What about our balanced budget? How are we marketing? It's a whole bunch of questions. So I hear staff wanting it to balance the budget, which is, I understand where they're coming from. I hear the finance committee doesn't want it, but I'm trying to get to the bottom of it. I think maybe other directors do too. Doesn't have to be an hour-long conversation, obviously. I just want to know.
And one of the things that we did after that discussion in January, guys, I also don't like to make decisions in a vacuum, wanted some data. So Allison polled the other journalism organizations, the affinity groups and others. And so we have a report, I'm happy to share it with anyone, that we looked at and showed that our dues were kind of middle of the road. Oh, right. Okay. So we weren't making this decision in a vacuum.
But those are our dues without chapter dues. Many chapters charge dues.
That's
And
okay.
actually, yes, I know, but many chapters with the chapter dues, it's $100. So anyway, I think we've had this discussion. Is there anyone else in the room who wants to raise membership dues this year? I don't see any hands, so. I
have other questions about.
Oh, okay, is this a different question on the finance?
Well, I mean, it has to do with dues, I just don't know.
Oh, okay.
I mean, I question why we charge our college students more than we charge our associates.
Right.
You know, I mean, I have lots of, I think the due structure, I question the due structure, it's probably can't do that today. But I question the due, I think that we should charge the college students 20 and raise the associates. I mean, I think there's lots of things we should discuss. Going forward, maybe, you know, I was going to send maybe some information to college membership.
I hear from a lot of freelancers, we have no preferential pricing for freelancers. A lot of freelancers do not want this in the chapter dues. The fact is, our pricing structure is all over the place.
Yeah, it is.
It's a problem. So I think that's something that.
But this what is it? Is it $2 or something?
Yeah.
I would raise $2. If you're asking me on the board, would I raise? I would raise $2.
The other reason is 75 this week, but you said what you got 75, 672. Okay, so it would go to 77.
So we have motion before to approve the budget with those changes, but those changes include not having the increase, which is not what is. Do we want to discuss having a brief? you've already actually fixed the benefit of the balance. Taking the benefit of the balance. So do we want to discuss the relation of
I found that important to explain. Yeah, I know she's also said.
I mean, it's going to be very unpopular. I can tell you.
Well, yes, but our first job is to fiduciary responsibility to the organization. We raised these last time, it wasn't a popular use. I don't like raising these. I don't like chapters that charge fees because it's just stupid to have to pay
No,
twice. But
that's how they pay for their programs.
that's,
And I know my chapter also gives away $10,000 a year to scholarship for the So there are many chapters that make many decisions. I can tell you, I get complaints from a lot of municipalities. I really,
Well, maybe one of the things we can do is ask membership to look at the structure and reasons and make a recommendation.
Yeah, that's what I said.
I think that's what we should do. I think our due structure is all over the place.
And we could look at everything from a modest increase to a major increase that we would put before the elements the following year.
But that should be a strategic decision, not, gee, we need to plug a hole in the budget, let's just reduce 3%, correct, to get to a balanced budget.
Correct.
That should be a structural, and I do think that's something the membership committee can look at, and yes,
Well, I'm also a member of SPJ, Society of Professional Journalists. They raised their dues in the matter of like 2 or 3 years from 45 to 75. And at least 80% of the members of SCJ are freelancers. Nobody complained. So I just thought I would mention that, you know.
Okay. I do think this is a separate question. We have a motion on the table. We are required to approve a budget. This is the budget with the 3 amendments that Matt described. I don't know if you want to describe this again. I think we understand it.
I have to read it. Approve the budget with the removal of the dues increase, dipping into the 3 pots of money, and contingent on staff review with the elimination of a specific reference to Blackwater.
Let me just say that even though I said I would definitely vote for it, I'm not willing to hold the budget up because of this, but I believe strongly, you know, as Lauren said, and I think Mike right next to me, that we need to look at the membership structure.
I think having columns here is a great idea.
And that's a great idea.
Yeah.
Okay, we have a motion on the table to approve the budget with those 3 amendments. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any nays?
no.
Okay, so we have 1 nay. Any abstentions? Okay, we have a new budget. Thank you, folks. We do have the public comment period now. I think most of the have already spoken. Is there anyone else who would like to speak before we break? Okay, we are now running behind schedule. Eric, and we have coffee over there. It's getting cold. So let's have coffee. Okay, and we are.
There's popcorn in the
late.
lobby.
So.
Yeah, I appreciate the